What's up, everybody? Welcome to GameFace, episode 350 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your humble host and the founder of Sifted, here to deliver a couple hours of awesome video game discussion with my good friend, Matt Kyle. What's up, Matt?
Oh, July.
Yeah, well, you have a big week this week. You got GameFace today, and then you got to start getting ready for Comic-Con this weekend, right?
Yeah, there's one of the short films is in the film festival there on Saturday.
That's awesome, man.
So,
that'll be your biggest viewing ever, I'm guessing, of the film.
probably not.
Wait, which one, actually? Which of the two films?
Flat Earther, the political one. I don't know about that because,
really?
To be honest, I didn't know there was a film festival there until we submitted for it. It's in the Marriott Hotel, one of the ballrooms there. I mean, we had a few hundred people at a couple of those festivals. I don't know how many people are going to show up.
Well, the screenings that I went to, there's probably 200 people in that theater, would be my guess. Something like that.
Is it like for the film festival?
Yeah.
At
the one that I went to, yeah. The screening. Seemed like 150, maybe?
Screening of what?
Both your films, remember?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I thought you meant Comic-Con.
No. I mean, there was a couple hundred people at that. So.
No, this is like a ballroom in a hotel. I don't think it didn't fit that many people.
No. So. Still, it's some important eyeballs wandering around those streets.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Sure. I mean, I've done this too much to be.
But it's Comic-Con, Matt, something that we covered for years and years, and now you're a part of it. You're not. I should be there covering your ass on the red carpet.
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of people we know are on panels. It's fine. And also, this is an interesting one because all the Hollywood stuff isn't there,
right? Because of the strikes.
Yeah.
What is Comic-Con going to be this year without the celebrities?
Might actually be comics.
Yeah, it might actually go back to what it was originally started for.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, we don't count for that because we're a micro budget short film. Mm-hmm. I am not the AMPTP. Shockingly enough.
Yeah.
But no, it's so it should be fun. We're gonna do the thing. We got 6 of the crew going, and we'll do a little Q&A thing and see some of the other ones there. I'm curious. It's interesting because like they go by genre and like. So I think I submitted this one in like the thriller suspense side or something, and like it's a date with an argument.
Yeah,
but it's not a genre picture, right? You know, it's like aliens don't show up or anything like that. So I don't know. It's I wonder how that'll go over. Sometimes you get some. You know, if it'll play or if it'll be like it's like get your politics out of my Comic-Con film festival thing. I don't know.
I don't think anything like that'll happen.
Probably not. But we'll see.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. I'm rooting for you. It's really great to see you doing something with your films at Comic-Con. To me, that's a huge milestone. I know you're just kind of saying, "Oh, whatever." To me, your friend, I think it's a pretty big deal. So congratulations. I think it's awesome. I hope everything goes great. I have to say, Matt, I have very little interest in ever going back to Comic-Con. Actually, your thing would be something I would consider going back for, something like that. But otherwise,
I mean, well, same.
Yeah. Touche.
Yeah, Comic-Con is not my favorite.
Yeah. Maybe what it used to be.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe this year it'll be good because like there won't be. But again. I can't imagine if, like, you pay the obscene amount of money they charge for tickets, for badges to this thing, and they cancel all the Hollywood panels. I can't imagine that you just be like, oh, I guess we're just not going to go. Like, you already paid for it. You're stuck with it. You might as well go see what you can see.
Well, I saw Sifter, AJ the Legend Watson is going. He's like, I'm already off work. I'm ramping up for Comic-Con. I do hope you have an awesome time. I hope everyone who goes has an awesome time.
I can try to run into Cliff Blazinski, who's there for a couple panels. He's
got his new comic launching.
Comic book, Scrapper, and he's also doing, I think he's doing like some kind of game-related...
Like a panel
of experts sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think so.
I'm sure you'll run into some of our old friends there.
Yeah. There's
PR people running the game stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just got to go to the right bar after the show closes, and you'll be golden.
Yeah, well, usually that's the Marriott lobby.
Yeah, that is. That's true, actually.
You sit in the Marriott lobby, and half of Comic-Con will just walk past you over the course of the afternoon.
Yeah,
so.
That's pretty accurate. It will be different, Comic-Con without the celebs. Because that's the one thing I remember about Comic-Con that actually was kind of disturbing to me, was watching the people flip out over the celebrities. Because if you work in this industry, you get to know these people, and you realize they're just people that just happen to do a job where they make a lot of money. To me, they're no different than, like, a hedge fund manager or somebody like that who makes a ton of money. They're just really good at what they do. But to a lot of people in America, it's not that way. They look at them as these they look at them differently than I do. So it was I was like, wow, because you could see one of them walk across the floor and just watch. It was almost like a beehive watching.
It was like an amoeba.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten stuck like trying to walk somewhere when the Walking Dead cast crossed the thing and you're stuck there for like 10 minutes where everybody loses their mind.
Getting like smashed in a mosh pit. Yeah.
I mean, I've known people that camped out overnight in full cosplay for the Game of Thrones panel, which like, man, I would feel silly now if I'd done that. But like, and you're like, I was there the year the guy got stabbed in the eye at Hall H for stealing somebody's seat or something. It's just like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Like I get the kind of the thrill of being in the room while you got all the people you like from your show and one, like the Supernatural panel was always like pretty cool if you like that show, I guess. And like, but I don't know, it's just never been a thing. I mean, the celebrities,
when you talk to them, they're like that. They're like, I'm just a dude who like got lucky. Like I had this audition that like I had an on day that day, and from then it was just like they're just people. But I guess when people aren't around them enough, they don't look at them that way.
So the parasocial relationship thing didn't start with Twitch.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. So anyway, here we are for GameFace 350, kind of a milestone episode. 350 episodes. That is just crazy that we've done this many. I would like to add up the hours and the minutes of GameFace that we've done so far up to this point. Like I just wouldn't. Hundreds of thousands of minutes. It's pretty awesome. And thanks to all you guys who support us and have been along for the ride. In fact, you guys are going off already in chat. We've already hit the hype train level 8. Are you freaking kidding me?
It goes up
Setting
to 8
a new
now?
Record. Are you kidding me?
I thought it stopped at 5.
What the hell is going on here? What are you guys doing? Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Definitely the biggest hype train ever for GameFace. Wow, this is amazing. I noticed when the show kicked off that a ton of you guys had subscribed to Twitch Prime before the show even started. I was like, oh, what's going on here? Like, I think we hit level 3 or 4 before the show even kicked off today. You guys got an itch in your crawl. I love it. Let's go up here and thank people who are helping us do this. Cinetyke, thank you for gifting subs. Rosencrans, thank you for subscribing at Tier 1. Snark, thank you for Twitch Prime. Sound Wizard, thank you. I always say this wrong. Nixitois. Thank you again for buying subs. You did it last week as well. You guys are awesome. Sound Wizard, thank you for gifting these Tier 1 subs. Much love, man. He and I have actually been in contact with each other here over the last couple weeks. And he's going through some stuff, so send him some good vibes if you can. Mitchell is alive. Thank you for Twitch Prime. Not Cirque, thank you. JM Rain, what's going on? Buying Tier 1 subs. It's insane how many Tier 1 subs people have bought today. This is incredible. AJ the Legend Watson says back to its roots, talk about Comic-Con. And, I think AJ has been going since when it was really a comic show.
Yeah, I mean, I was there once in 96 when it was actually the comic convention that you think of when you think of a comic. And that was cool. But then I went back 10 years later and it was like E3 Junior.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the way it's been since. David Nordic, thank you. Cinetyke, thank you for Twitch Prime. Caustic Kip? Caustic Kip, thank you for Twitch Prime. Manny on the Moon, thank you. Nexatois, thank you. Corey Film, thank you. Too Quick Capri, thank you. You guys are awesome. P-Tor91, thank you. The Big Smoke 82, thank you. You guys are the shit. I never swear like this in the opening of the show because sometimes it gets you demonetized, but I can't help it. This is awesome. Level 9.
Only the first 30 seconds.
What'd you say?
It's only the first 30 seconds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought it was like the first 8 minutes or whatever. We're probably past that anyway. Level 9 of the hype train. Awesome, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow. Never dreamed when we kicked off the show today that this was going to happen. This is great. And we really need it, too. Oh, and here's some more. Veritas, thank you. Noxatornitis, thank you. Ultimate Villain, Talimper, thank you. Very Gooster. Wow, this is awesome. It's like you guys all coordinated behind my back to just give us Twitch Prime all at once. It's really awesome. Thanks, guys. That's amazing. What a great way to kick off the show. Got a little kick in my step now. Let's see. It's been slow as hell in games this week. That's the irony. We have an awesome audience today and a ho-hum show. I want to say ho-hum, but it's been slow. So we're definitely going to have time to get to name that game today. I'll just put that out there right now. July is always a slow time of year. In fact, I'm surprised so many of you guys are live on the chat. Like last week, our unique numbers were down as far as unique viewers, but that's the summertime. People are on vacation. You're out doing fun stuff. I hope you're doing that. You should be out doing that. You can watch GameFace as an archive on your phone no matter where you are in the world if you're a patron or a subscriber. So get out there and make it happening. It's one of my favorite lines from one of my favorite TV shows, Gold Rush. You ever watch that show?
No.
There's some guy there that's from, like, I don't know, I think he's from the Netherlands or something, and he's a gold miner, and his English isn't great, but his English is awesomely not great. He, like, says things that are so funny, and one of his big phrases is "make it happening." So you guys are making it happening on our chat today, which is awesome. Vincent says you're not 90 minutes on Exoprimal. Oh, we're going to get to Exoprimal. We definitely have some things to say. Not 90 minutes worth of things to say, unfortunately, though. I wish it was so awesome that we could talk about it for 90 minutes. That'd be great. And look what I have, people. I finally decided to make a graphic for housekeeping. I figure we've been doing this for like a year and a half now. We might as well make a graphic for it finally. Because a lot of times people may come to the stream and not know what the hell's going on. They'll just see a trailer running or whatever. So I figured we put some branding in the housekeeping section. And we do have, I'll say this, we do have a lot of housekeeping to get to for this episode. So let's get started right away. Matt, probably the biggest story maybe this week is that Xbox and Microsoft are basically killing Xbox Live in favor of a brand new product called Game Pass Core. Now, Matt, what I will contend with Game Pass Core is that this was a plan all along. So I don't know if you realize, because you may not even go grab the games anymore, but the free games that we've been getting on Xbox Live for the last year have been abysmal. I
didn't even realize that was a thing anymore.
Well, they were continued doing it, and the games were so bad that it's like I still was going and grabbing them probably 70% of the time, but there were months where after doing it consistently for like over a decade, there were months where I did not even bother to go and claim the games. And so to me, I feel like Microsoft knew this was coming all along, and they were just basically tanking Xbox Live free games with gold so that people, when they went away, were like, whatever, I don't miss them. And that does seem to be what's happening. Like when we put up the story yesterday on SIFTD, a lot of the responders were like, I don't really care because the games are so bad that it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I would never even have thought of that until you said it.
Yeah, but I think that was... Look, I'll say this. It's a genius plan. It sure seemed to work. At least on our audience it did, and our audience is really savvy. They pick up on stuff like that really easily, but I saw this coming, and it's the same price. So here's the swap, is that instead of getting 2 or 3 free games that you can keep forever, as long as you're a subscriber... Now there's a collection of like, I think it's a dozen or maybe 24 games every month that you can choose to play from. So you're basically getting like a very limited selection of games from Game Pass instead of getting the 2 or 3 games for free that you can keep forever. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's a fair trade-off?
Sure. I mean, I haven't thought about that in forever. And like, honestly, like if you're going to spend the money on doing like a giveaway a game thing, why not use it for Game Pass instead? There's also the argument to be made that they were kind of out of games to give away.
Yeah, when you give them away for that
how
long,
can you do that?
You have to hope that they keep releasing new indie games, basically. And they do. I mean, there's so many games released every year now that there's a never-ending supply of free games you could give away. I personally would prefer the 2 to 3 free games that I get to keep forever. Because after this happened, I went back, and also while my nephew was here last week, he was going through all my libraries. And like, I didn't even realize, Matt, how many games I have. He was blown away. He's like, oh my God. And I hadn't even thought about it. And I looked and I was like, oh my God. Look at how many games I have. Like, more than half of those are from Xbox Live. Mm-hmm. Like, from the 2 to 3 games. And for a long time, they were great.
You don't realize how big your digital library is.
It's insane. Like, my Xbox library from the whole 360 era, because obviously I was editor-in-chief and I was getting everything sent to me, so I got every game from that whole entire era. All the free stuff from Xbox Live. That's just Xbox. Then I go over to my PlayStation library, and it's hundreds and hundreds of games big. So I would prefer to get the games that I get to keep, because I'm never going to drop my subscription. I'm always going to at least want to play online on Xbox, so I'm always going to have at least that. I personally would prefer to get the free games that I get to keep forever, instead of like this selection that they choose every month that I can play. I mean, my guess is most of them...
I wouldn't, because I don't get to pick the free games.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you get something really good, but that was mostly early on in the program.
Well, I think for a long time you got good stuff.
Like, a lot of stuff I already had, because they hit that so late, and like they were already $5 by the time they hit it free sometimes.
Yeah.
And this, Game Pass gives me something I want to play day of release. which I think is better, certainly for someone who plays the way I play. So, yeah, I think it should say something that the new system absorbs me enough that I didn't even realize the old system was still in place. So
my guess is that the games that they give you each month are probably going to be all their games. That way that they don't have to pay somebody to put those games into that collection.
Yeah, well, I imagine it'll be kind of like a PlayStation Plus model where it's just good but not amazing kind of
just
stuff.
have to tease you to try to get you to go up the tier to get the real game pass.
A lot of stuff with expansions and add-on content. You know, like one of the smartest things that like PlayStation Plus can do is give away like a Bandai Namco RPG, because that has 4,000 bikini DLC.
Well, I mean,
add-ons.
the DLC never ends.
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z Kakarot just got DLC this week, Matt. The game is like 4 years old. It really is insane. Like, if you want a good deal in gaming, just buy one of Bandai Namco's like anime-based games. They support them forever. You will never ever run out of DLC. They'll always add characters. I mean, they add like story beats and all kinds of stuff to those games. It just goes on for eternity. So those are always a good deal if you actually like to play them in the first place, which for me, I pretty much don't. So anyway, that's a big shift for Microsoft. That's 20 years of Xbox Live gone. And here's the really sad part, Matt. I finally remembered to bring taps and put it on the TriCaster, and then I forgot to get it off the hard drive and put it on the TriCaster after all these years of like something dying. And I'd be like, man, I really wish we had taps on the TriCaster. Today with Xbox Live, I was like, oh, this is it. I'm like, it's the death of Xbox Live. I'm going to put taps on the TriCaster and we're going to play it. And I totally forgot to transfer it from the external hard drive that it was on. So anyway, rest in peace, Xbox Live. I mean, that's pretty insane to have a brand that goes on for 20-some years and to kill it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen all that often.
Will we get to keep our 20 years of service?
I think so. I think so. Like the little badge that you get. And that's what I use, actually, is my badge. I use that for PSN as well. Like my 10-year or whatever that I got for that.
I still have one of the beta test
the Xbox Live
kits,
things?
Yeah. It was not my gamer tag because it was Ryan Vance's license back then. I don't think you can even have a gamer tag that short anymore.
I mean, I have Dinfire.
His is 4 letters.
Yeah, that may be hard. People ask me all the time. They'll message me on Xbox and just be like, how did you get your name?
Yeah,
because I was literally signed up day one.
Yeah,
and have kept myself the whole
they probably
time.
think it's a Zelda reference.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, but they're just because everybody else is like a name plus 50 numbers or whatever.
Last year at some point, I had somebody make fun of me because I didn't have any numbers in my name. It's like, how come you don't have any numbers in your name? What the hell's wrong with you? I'm just like, I'm old enough that we didn't have to do that yet.
I often wonder, like, I wish people could see me. Like when they're playing against me, like in Call of Duty or whatever, because, you know, nobody assumes I'm as old as I am. And if they do assume that, they don't think I'm as good as I am. So I would love to see the reaction on people's faces if they saw who they were playing against and who just murked them. Like some like middle-aged dude and they're like 13 or whatever. I would love to see that. So anyway, rest in peace, Xbox Live. I think it's still a couple weeks away before they turn it off and flip the switch and everything like that. But, you know, as far as paying money to get a few free games every month and play online, that's not happening anymore. Instead, you're going to get a limited selection of games from Game Pass. And again, the new program is called Game Pass Core. Next up, we're starting to finally hear some rumblings about The Last of Us Part 2. Part 3. We talked about that last week. But we're also getting some rumblings about The Last of Us Part 2 in that they're going to rework the game. They are working on a new version of The Last of Us Part 2 already. Now, that could be, I think, one of two things. It could be a PlayStation 5 version, because we still don't have a dedicated PS5 version of the game, or it could be the PC version of the game.
I think it's both.
You think it's both?
Yeah.
Because they are adding stuff. So I think it was a voice actor or somebody who came out and said, oh, yeah, they're working on a bunch of stuff for The Last of Us Part 2, including like lines that were not in the original game or something. So they're actually adding content to the PS5 and PC version. What do you think the big plan here is?
I mean, I would guess they're going to align it somewhat with sort of how they're planning to adapt it for the show. They are going to make it 60 frames per second, or at least give it a mode that does that. You know, they're not afraid to remake this series however many times they need to sell you another copy of it. So.
Yeah. I mean, the funny part is I had to look it up and to get the exact release date. It actually has been out for quite a while at this point. It's not like it just came out last year or whatever.
No, it's 3 years old.
Yeah, so there's been a nice little buffer there already. It will be interesting to see what it is. You know, if there are things that were on the cutting room floor from the original version of the game, or if there is stuff that they're developing anew. I don't know. But pretty interesting. Just keep your ear to the ground, or to SIFTD.net. We'll have all the information on that as soon as it breaks. But just know that either for the PS5 or PC version of The Last of Us Part 2, there are going to be extras. I also wonder, too, if it'll be enough extras to convince people to buy it again. Because when I said, Matt, what do you think the master plan is? I thought you were immediately going to say to get people to pay for it again.
Well, yeah.
Because that really is what... I think that's what the master plan is. I think they want more than just like, oh, I own a PC. I've wanted to play that for a while. Now I'm going to buy it. I think they also want people like us who've already played it to maybe give it another go.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, just something...
They might also want to consider launching it not in a complete disaster state.
Yeah.
That would be a good step.
For PC, specifically.
For PC.
Yep. And also, imagine this game made for PS5. How beautiful will it look?
I mean, I imagine it'll look about the same.
You really think?
I think it'll just run better, yeah.
I mean, PS5 versions are a pretty significant step up at this point, typically.
Yeah, but what else can you do to that shot?
I mean, it's already so gorgeous, you're right. I don't know. But I think it will look better somehow. It is Naughty Dog. They're kind of wizards. So anyway, just keep an eye out for that. We'll hear more information on new versions of The Last of Us Part 2, I think probably in the very near future. Next up, Matt, did you know that Edge magazine still existed?
Yes.
I did not know that. I thought it had gone away.
Sometimes people talk about scores from that, yeah.
Because its website went away. We used to curate from Edge, and we had them in our admin, and the website just stopped publishing. And so we took them out from curation. We don't curate from them anymore. But as it turns out, Edge is still published as a paper magazine. And this month's episode, they had an interview with a developer from Star Wars Outlaws who shared a couple tidbits about the game, the biggest of which is that the planets in this game, each planet is as big as the worlds in Assassin's Creed, in the modern Assassin's Creed games.
Well, which one?
Now, they haven't said...
Because they're all very different sizes.
Right. They haven't said how many planets total there are yet in Outlaws. So we don't know. There could just be 2. Or
well, from the clips in this, we see there's at least 4.
Yeah.
So there's at least a desert planet, this planet, an ice planet, and a city, and Coruscant.
Mm-hmm.
So at least 4.
Yeah, I mean, so that's 4 times the size of the latest Assassin's. That's gigantic. Is there a point where it just gets too big?
Well, yeah, Valhalla.
Yeah, I mean, so if this is 4 times the size of Valhalla,
part of the problem with Valhalla is that it's boring.
Right.
After a certain,
That's true.
I don't know if I'm the only one, but I find all the stuff in Valhalla where you play as Odin. In like the mythology, I find all that stuff is incredibly bad.
I honestly thought the game was boring in general.
I liked it generally, but it just you know how many you got to like take over every province or whatever in England, and like I think by the 2/3 mark, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I don't need to go to another province and have the same sort of. Oh, the new ruler that is sort of friendly to us doesn't know how to solve this problem, so I guess we better solve the problem. Oh, solving the problem turned out to be just killing a bunch of people, and now we got to sit through a party again. Like it all felt very samey, and I couldn't tell you, when everybody showed up at the end battle, like all the allies you'd made showed. I'm like, I don't know who any of you fuckers are. Like I'm sorry, this game took me 3 years to play, and I don't remember who any of you are, what you did, or what I did for you, or any of that.
Yeah, now to your point, I will say...
I don't think I will have that problem in a Star Wars game.
Yeah, I don't think you will either. To your point, though, I did play probably like 25 or 30 hours of it before I was like, I don't want to play this anymore.
Oh, you don't want to know how long I played.
I know, I already know. You've told me already. But... So it's not like I thought it was a bad game. I just think it was just too big and too bloated. I just think there's a point where it's just too much.
You can make something really big, but you got to have a reason to make it that big, and you got to
instead of just copying and pasting.
Engage me the whole time, and Valhalla doesn't do that.
I mean, I hope to God that's not what happens with Outlaws.
I mean, any game runs out of tricks eventually.
Yeah.
You just got to hope that the core gameplay is fun, and I think part of the problem with Valhalla is the core gameplay was not particularly interesting. Whereas, like, I thought the core gameplay of Odyssey stayed cool the whole time, even though that game was also really long.
I played that for 40 or 50 before I
I played that game for like 150 hours, but like I thought
it was a better game.
Yeah, because she had more. She kind of had more magic to her. Like like, Cassandra was a more agile character. She couldn't get hurt by fall damage.
Yeah.
Because after a certain upgrade, like the magic abilities of the Leonidas Spear were always sort of in play in the combat, and you can do that in Valhalla, but Valhalla is very much more a overwhelming force combat system. And it just doesn't. It's just there's nothing as efficient as just whacking a guy with a double. Basically, once you get the ability to wield a double-handed sword with one hand, there's very few things that can stand up to you. Yeah. And doing other stuff with your various abilities is really just sort of filling time.
Yeah. Sneaky says that Ireland still has a few magazines and bookshops. Edge, Game Informer, Nintendo, and Games Master off the top of his head. Yeah, there really aren't any here.
No, I don't think there are.
I don't think there's even one left. No. Game Informer. They still publish Game Informer, don't they?
Do they?
I think they do.
Maybe.
That would be it, though.
Which is crazy. That's got to be near the end, though, because of the situation with GameStop, though.
Yeah, you would think. But yeah, you would think the market is big as the US.
I thought Game Informer went to an online-only model. Like they send you a PDF or something.
I thought it did still publish a paper mag. Maybe not. There may be none.
I mean, I know the answer. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. I'm surprised they've lasted as long as they have.
Yeah,
it's pretty impressive.
A very impressive run for Game Informer.
Yeah,
especially given where they were based.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, when they heard this news about Outlaws, were like, "Yahoo!" I was kind of like, "Oh, I wasn't celebrating." I guess is how I would put it.
Well, we'll see. I mean, Massive does tend to know how to fill space. Mm-hmm. It's not like this is the Assassin's Creed team.
Yeah.
And right now I don't particularly care because I just want to play it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be worried about how overly big or bloated this game is until about 40 or 50, 60 hours into it. And by that point, who cares?
That's a good point. Yep. So anyway, it looks like Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah, I do believe you could probably go to all those places you can see in the background there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that's an element.
Yeah, but bottom line is...
That Skyrim preview really traumatized open world designers. It's just like, you can go there. Or what was the you can go there thing? What was that? You remember that?
I don't totally remember. I'm just trying to remember which game it was.
You can go there, and then you totally could not. What was that?
No, it wasn't GTA.
No. What?
Was it Assassin's Creed?
Maybe I'm just assuming.
No, there was a moment in time where a developer was demoing a game, and they pointed to the horizon, and they were like, "You can go there," and everybody was like, "Oh my god!"
It was Skyrim. He's like, "See that mountain? You can climb it."
Yeah, I think you're right. Yep.
Yeah, that's what Cantana's saying.
Cantano. Yeah, that's it. Good call. Some people are saying Zelda, Breath of the Wild.
I mean, Zelda did have that, but you could climb the mountain. I mean, and because climbing the mountain, other than the main mountain in Skyrim, where at the top where the temple is and stuff, you can climb the mountain if you just hop up like a crazy person, hope you can abuse the various clippings. You can't really climb the mountain like an actual mountain climber. You can sort of hop up it.
Yeah.
It was a very different thing. Breath of the Wild actually,
for
all its faults, you can actually climb the thing.
Yeah, maybe more often than I would enjoy, but yeah. So bottom line is, it looks like Star Wars Outlaws is going to be a big game. I think that's what we can take away from this.
I mean, I think the vertical slice implies that in this footage already.
Yeah. Yep. So I guess it depends on your perspective. I was a little disappointed. I was like, I don't need it to be that big. To me, 40 hours is perfect for a game.
I think an open world I mean, I'm sure you can get to the main story in about 40 hours.
Yeah,
or less.
Maybe.
But if you want to hang out in the world and
if that's the case,
shit,
I'm totally cool with that.
There you go. But also interesting that this and a couple of comics recently, those commando battle droids are continually going rogue. Have a little more sentience than you might think. And it's interesting that that's a thing they're leaning into right now, is this idea that the post-Clone Wars, those commando droids are doing weird shit.
I mean, they should. If you think about where we are with AI already, if you're talking about Star Wars, it's supposed to be set so far in the future, they should be sentient. Robots should be totally sentient.
Well, they are. That's one of the great unexplored, or maybe intentionally ignored aspects of the Star Wars universe, is they have a sentient slave race.
Oh, that's right.
Droids.
Yeah.
The heroes of the original trilogy own 2 slaves.
Yeah.
Who definitely seem to be sentient beings.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they touch on that in Solo with Phoebe Waller-Bridge's droid, but it's played kind of for laughs. But when you really think about it, it's and there's a line in episode 2 where Obi-Wan says, "Well, if droids could think, none of us would be here."
Yeah.
And that's the other thing about like Clone Wars is like those droids should win like that,
right?
Like a computer-controlled aiming system versus a bunch of I don't care how good
even if you are
Jango
a
Fett
Jedi,
is, like. They're gonna win. Like they can shoot you before you can see them. It should be like this should all be over the horizon stuff, basically. Yeah. But it's not partly. I mean, the way we get out of that is it's all orchestrated, and it's supposed to be World War I, and Palpatine did it intentionally so they could intended for them to lose because and they cheaped on a lot of the parts and stuff. But even they accidentally, there's a new game, a miniatures game like Warhammer. It just came out called Shatterpoint for Star Wars, and they accidentally made those baseline battle droids really, really good because in a combat system that relies on stuff like Warhammer does, massing a bunch of just like droids like that wins. Yeah, because they're very, they do the job just well enough to be better than like a supposedly more powerful individual team. Yeah. So yeah, there's an element to be explored here at some point that like. The droids are an underclass, but you can kind of get around that by the fact that in this universe the Force exists and energy field created by all living things, and inherently something that does not have a connection to the Force is not a living sentient creature to these people. But it still doesn't really feel right, does it? Yeah. And I'm very concerned that is what the Quantic Dream game is going to be about. Because holy shit, are they not equipped to have that conversation as we have seen? Yep. So anyway,
Outlaws,
I don't think that'll be in this game.
I don't either. Outlaws is looking like a big game. It looks like at the very least you're going to get your money's worth. Don't forget that's supposed to be coming out next year. That also makes me a little nervous. Hearing how big it is coming out next year, we'll see. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think I'll be drafting it for next year's league.
I think it'll come out next year. I just think, they said early 2024, and I'm thinking more late 2024.
Yeah, like Q4. That's what I'm thinking, too. Okay, so we finally truly reached the end of the Activision Blizzard acquisition by Microsoft. There was one last hurdle in the U.S. to overcome after we did the show last week, and that was the FTC had appealed. And did we even talk about this last week, about how they had appealed, and we were like, it's not going to happen because it's like a very... like all experts agree that they shouldn't have appealed. Well, they lost their appeal, just like Matt and I said. And so as far as the U.S. is concerned, it is clear sailing for the deal. Now, there's still stuff going on in the U.K. I don't think there's any way that holds up the deal in general, though. No. Like, worst case scenario, it just screws up stuff in the UK.
Worst case scenario, they just ignore the UK forever, and that's the end of it.
They just bail out of there. But it sounds like...
get more benefit from just doing that than... arguing to it's not a big enough market to make them back down from the deal.
Yeah. Well, if you need any further evidence that it really is a done deal, that is that PlayStation came crawling back to Microsoft this week and signed the 10-year deal for Call of Duty that it balked at and scoffed at when it was presented to them when they thought they had a chance to win the case. Mm-hmm. Now that the case is over, they come crawling back to Xbox and they're like, please let us sign that 10. Yeah. That's a $10 billion deal, by the way.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made that they had to try.
Yeah.
But
I don't begrudge them. I mean, you can't just roll over and let it happen. So
I will say this, though. Maybe the FTC could have spent some time examining the idea that studios shouldn't control the streaming services. Yeah. The way they shouldn't have controlled the theater distribution model in the golden age of Hollywood, which they were forcibly separated from, and that's why we have independent theater chains now.
It's true.
Yeah, that might have been a better use of money and time than this bullshit. Yeah, which was never ever going to go anywhere.
Yeah. So if you're a PlayStation owner and you were concerned about this whole acquisition, you're like, I could lose Call of Duty, a bunch of other games. At the very least, you're going to get Call of Duty for the next 10 years, the next decade. Mm-hmm. And I would argue then,
and by then, hopefully you've moved on.
Or something better. You would hope by then another shooter would come along that's better. Can somebody do it?
I don't think shooters are popular enough to have that happen.
Otherwise, you mean outside of Call of Duty?
Yeah, I don't think you could make a shooter that would catch fire like that. Call of Duty's on inertia right now. Mm-hmm. If shooters come back into vogue and something like that, it's possible. But right now, it's weird how Call of Duty is gigantic, but that genre is nothing.
Yeah, it is kind of small. Although
you got dedicated people that constantly play their shooter of preference, but it is not a mainstream like mindshare genre anymore.
Well, they've been working shooting into like everything now. Yeah. It's all just kind of bleeding together. Genre lines are blurring. So
right, but
every RPG has like a first-person mode in it now.
Right, but that's not the same thing as a first-person
dedicated
shooter.
first-person shooter.
Nothing moves that fast. Nothing focuses that much on the aiming and the hitting.
In the shooting, yeah.
It's like, and the boomer shooter thing is sort of an undercurrent at this point. But like, it's not. It's it used to be like. Yeah, there is certainly a contingent of the audience that just plays. To them, video games are shooters, but they've picked their shooter and that's what they play. It's like Madden.
Yeah,
so they pick their shooter and they play that every year.
Yeah,
and now they even said that this year's Call of Duty is a continuation of last year's Call of Duty, so you're not even skipping years for the preferred setting anymore.
Well, also, they announced today that all the cosmetics, guns, and everything are going to carry over from last year's game to this year's game as well. So, you're not even losing like your progression from year to year.
I mean, I'm surprised it doesn't surprise me they didn't do that because Activision's a greedy little sack of bastards. But like, making it more of a platform that moves forward is smart. Yeah, I think, and more along Microsoft's way they plan stuff anyway.
What do you think happens in 10 years, Matt? Do you think that they take it away from PlayStation in 10 years?
I don't know. Like, at that point, maybe PlayStation won't care anymore.
Yeah.
There's no way to know whether Call of Duty will still be the juggernaut it is even today. And
I think they will. I think they will
maybe
take it away. Because it'll be 10 years after the deal. Like, there's no way the FTC is going to come back on them and be like, you told us, blah, blah, blah. That's water under the bridge at that point.
No, there's no way to separate that anymore.
Yeah, I think in 10 years they take Call of Duty away. But again, to your point, who even knows?
Even matters.
Who even knows what's happening in 10 years? It could be insane. Like, by then, they could stop making consoles. It could literally be Game Pass is just like a service, and Xbox doesn't make Xboxes anymore. So, who knows? Like, you just don't know what's going to happen. So, but I would argue if things stay the same the way they are now, I probably would say that Xbox or Microsoft takes Call of Duty away from PlayStation. And I think it's, to me, kind of a done deal already that the next Diablo, the next what am I thinking of? Not StarCraft. I would argue those games probably never come to PlayStation again.
I mean, again, it takes them 10 years to make a Diablo, so...
It depends on the money, too. Yeah. Like, by then they'll have figured out, is it smarter to keep selling these games on PlayStation or put them on Game Pass?
I mean, Diablo 4 is going to exist on PlayStation for,
10 years.
Two generations. It's like...
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, like, your canary in that coal mine is when the PlayStation 6 comes out, does Diablo get an update to work on it?
Right. Yeah. And I would argue it probably does.
I would imagine it would, yeah.
But Diablo 5... I don't know.
I don't know if it matters. Like, I mean, there'd have to be a pretty big shift in Microsoft's strategy in terms of wanting to shift hardware versus software. Microsoft is a software company.
It is
first and foremost, and they seem to have remembered that at some point.
Yep.
Really, they're an OS company, but
yeah. So anyway, finally, this is all put to rest. We don't have to talk about Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard anymore. It's a done deal. It is happening. It looks like the deal could go through pretty quick, too. Although they're talking about extending the deal.
I mean, I think they'll sign the deal fairly quickly, but actually implementing it is going to take a long time.
I mean, they're two behemoths. Like, trying to merge those two is crazy. There's going to be a lot of layoffs.
Just fumigating Bobby Kotick's office.
There's going to be a lot of layoffs from redundancies because you figure HR, marketing, all those departments, you don't need two of them anymore. Although they did kind of leave Bethesda alone. Like, I still talk to Bethesda PR people. Like, they haven't dissolved like that department and made me start talking to people at Xbox.
Well, they would never do. I mean, all those developers except the really small still have their PR. They're just wings of Xbox. They answer to Xbox marketing now. Yeah, but
probably got a nice raise.
You don't want to do all that stuff. In the home office, you want to have people that are embedded in the team over there. I think that makes sense. Yeah, Microsoft's always done that. Even back in the day, like Epic was still doing their own PR people for Gears. Yeah. It just makes sense. The redundancy is leadership more than in terms of the executive leadership.
And some of those people will be moving on too.
You don't need. They'll be fine. Most of those people are golden
they'll get their golden
quality,
parachute and they'll float down to the ground.
Don't worry about them.
Yeah, they'll be fine. Next up, we have a major development in the European Union that could have trickle-down effects for a lot of different products. And what we found out this week is that the EU is requiring that hardware manufacturers that make handhelds manufacture them in such a way that you can replace the battery. And that is going to happen by 2027, so not that far away. That's some consideration. So if you're Nintendo right now, what are you doing, Matt?
Trying to find a way to get the Switch 2 classified as a game console.
Mm-hmm. So it's not... Mm-hmm. But that's tough.
Yeah.
Because, especially if you want to do something like the Switch Lite. Mm-hmm. It's a little easier if it's just a Switch, where it actually is a console and a handheld, but then you try to make something like this.
Well, you just build in like it'd be like a little battery pack thing, and you sell it yourself proprietarily, and you charge an obscene amount of money for it. It'll just become like the memory upgrade for the Xbox, basically.
You mean sell batteries at a high price?
Battery pack.
Yeah.
Like they don't have to be like Duracells.
They kind of should have been doing this already.
This is supposed to be like basically the rechargeable part of the battery the lithium battery you need to be able to replace it.
Yeah.
So now it'll just be like a game cartridge. You just slide it out, put a new one in.
Why do you think that they haven't done this with phones? Why do you think the EU is going after handhelds and not going after the cell phone market? Because it's too big to try to tell it to correct like this?
I don't know. Probably because people are more likely to like dispose of a game console in the trash as opposed to recycling. A lot of places give the old phone to them and they recycle it properly. That doesn't really exist for game handhelds.
Oh, do you think that's the angle on this? It's a recycling issue?
I think it's a safe disposal of the lithium.
I thought they were looking out for consumers.
No, give me a break.
Being like, you know what? You should be able to replace the battery in your handheld because you should be able to replace.
I think this is an environmental thing.
Interesting.
To make them easier to separate from the unit.
I hadn't thought about that. I really thought it was just them looking out for consumers and being like, you can't tell someone they can't replace the battery in their handheld on their own.
My sweet summer child. No.
I'm innocent, Matt.
Also, does this not apply to phones? Aren't phones handheld devices?
They should be. Yeah.
Wouldn't it? Maybe it does apply to phones.
Well, the problem is that I read a story that was written for people like me, for game people.
Right.
And they did not include in the story that I read whether it would be for cell phones. But, I mean, imagine trying to tell Apple...
Erebus Jones says it's all handheld electronic devices.
I mean...
Not just games.
That's a nightmare.
Phones.
Imagine you're Apple, or even, any Samsung or any manufacturer of smartphones.
I'll admit that's one of the main motivations I have when I upgrade my iPhone is the battery won't hold a charge all day anymore.
Yeah, the battery starts to get weaker.
That is, if that didn't happen, I would have waited years longer to upgrade a couple of my old phones.
I don't think that this is going to work for cell phones and smartphones because the way that they have to make them to fit the technology into the form factor, like telling them that they now have to build it in such a way that you can take the battery out and put the battery back in.
Yeah, you're going to definitely have a form factor issue there.
Yeah. I don't think that's a good idea, honestly. I think it'll make the devices way worse and bigger.
You might just have it be like a thing where you have to make it, or maybe it doesn't have to be replaceable by the user. Maybe it just has to be, because one of the things, if you take
to a shop,
you take an iPhone in and be like, hey, my battery doesn't hold a charge anymore. They're like, well, there's not much we can do about that. It's part of the main, it's soldered in there. There's not much you can do. You've got to buy a new one.
I love how this Asus Rogue trailer, it's like, if you get locked out of the house, it's a perfect time to play our $600 piece of electronics.
Did someone steal your keys?
How often? I mean, I haven't been locked out of my house in like 12 years, but okay. The one thing, too, I saw...
How would you get locked out of your house?
I don't know. Well, it only happens when you need a reason to play a handheld as an adult.
I'm just trying to imagine how that works.
I don't know. The other thing, too, Matt, is that there's a lot of legislation passing right now that's requiring manufacturers of electronics to manufacture things in such a way that you can fix it yourself in general. Mm-hmm. Because there's what is that website called? You Fix It or something like that?
Sure.
I think they filed class action lawsuits or something to make devices repairable or something without having to just get a whole new device. So there are all kinds of in all territories going off about this stuff right now. This one seems to be one of the most direct, and it could have wide-ranging implications.
Kevin Rafa says the products will get a rating that shows how easy it is for a consumer to change the battery.
So if you're if it's really hard, you just get the bad rating.
Yeah, I don't know. And again, they got 3 years to figure it out.
There's time to figure it out. So we'll see how it goes, but it could have huge implications, particularly, we're right on the cusp here of learning about Switch 2.
Knowing Apple, they might just be like, here's the giant, fat Euro iPhone. There you go. And now everybody else gets the normal one.
They'll make, exactly. Yeah. And then the people of Europe will get angry, and they'll get rid of the legislation.
They'll just charge more for the one.
Or they could do that, too. Yeah. So anyway, something to keep in mind, especially now that we're kind of right on the cusp of learning about Switch 2. Like, you got to wonder if Nintendo now is like, oh, okay, we maybe need to reconsider a couple things, assuming that Switch 2 is going to be just like Switch 1 and be a console handheld hybrid.
They'd be crazy not to.
I mean, it would be insane for Nintendo.
The end result might end up being like Europe doesn't get the Switch 2 for a while.
Yeah.
They have to design a new version of it for them.
But then you have to open up new lines of production, and that's not cheap or quick.
Yeah, unless this rating thing means you can still have it not replaceable.
And just have a 0 rating or whatever.
It's like a rated X equivalent for battery.
It's like a scarlet letter or something like that. But anyway, it's really crazy to just be talking about handhelds. Handhelds are kind of bigger than ever right now, Matt. Not just like the Asus ROG or the Steam Deck or the Switch. There are all these little like independent handhelds, and most of them are illegal, like emulator handhelds, honestly. Mm-hmm. But there's just so many of them now. I can't even keep track of them all. So
I have a couple of what are those? The fancy ones. I can't remember the name.
There's like 50. But I can't even keep track of them.
They're like the expensive one. They're hardware emulation. They're not like software stuff. But so I have like the one that's like it looks like a Game Boy Advance, like the old Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Pocket. Really looks more like. But you can plug any Game Boy cartridge into it and it plays it natively.
Wow, that's great.
I have that. I can't remember the name of the damn company, but I have that. I have the Super Nintendo they did like that, and I have an adapter for that handheld that plays Game Gear games because I have a lot of Game Gear games, and Turbo Express, and then they're doing a Turbo Duo version that I ordered. Like they are analog. That's it, and so that is like really cool. I want to say that I think that's FPGA is what that's called. It's basically like you are emulating the hardware except with higher end hardware, so they run a little bit. They look right, but they run a little better, and they're on a nicer screen. So that's cool.
Yeah, there's all kinds of little projects like that are just popping up all over the place. Like late at night, I watch like YouTube sometimes, and like there's so many. It's hard to keep track of them all. It's hard to believe that there's a market for all of them, and maybe there isn't. But I think handhelds are bigger now.
The analog stuff sells out like that. Yeah. So they don't make a ton of them, but clearly there's a market for it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So anyway, maybe change is coming to the handheld scene in the very near future. We got a little bit of, I guess it depends on your perspective, a little bit of bad news this week. We found out that Major Nelson is retiring, leaving Xbox.
I found out that Major Nelson was still working at Xbox.
You didn't know?
I don't really follow that.
What do you mean by that?
Like internal PR stuff. What does he do? I don't know. He used to be like pretty prominent all the time, and I haven't heard anything out of him for years.
Well, yeah, he used to host their big press conferences. Yeah. He'd have his little section in there. He's been doing this podcast for Xbox officially for a couple years now. There's a show that we curate every week called This Week on Xbox. Clever name. And he does the voiceover for that, but he disappeared like a month ago, and he stopped doing the voicing for that, and that sent up the red flag for me. I was like, what? Why would he stop doing that? I was like, okay, he's on vacation for a couple weeks. Then it got to like week 5, and I was like, he's not on vacation anymore. And then he comes out and shares that he is leaving. Didn't say where he's going or what he's doing. Do you think he's leaving on his own accord, or do you think they were like, you know what, you're too old to be this kind of the talking head for Xbox?
No, the gap there makes me wonder if he's okay.
Oh, really? Interesting.
If he misses a bunch of weeks and then says he's leaving.
Yeah,
it makes me wonder or worry that it's a health thing.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that. He is an icon.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy to think about that he was just this dude, just
this random dude who had a gamer tag named after I Dream of Jeannie, which no one would probably get anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, when I left Game Trailers, somebody from his team reached out to me because they were looking to hire somebody. Yeah. I don't know what they were doing. Maybe it was that podcast or whatever. But they reached out to me like, is this something you'd be interested in? Like, you'd have to move up to Seattle. And I was at that point, I was like, no way. Like, there's no way I want to move to Seattle or whatever. So I don't know whatever ended up happening with that. But, he has been a figure on the Xbox scene for a long time. I mean, since the beginning, since the OG Xbox, 20-some years he's been doing this. So I wish him luck, and I hope you're wrong, honestly. I hope there's not some kind of a physical issue. I hope he's just like, I've been doing this for 20-some years, and it's time to do something different.
Oh, sure. It's just the 5 weeks and not doing it is kind of a red flag.
It is, yeah. And I also hope that he's not being forced out because he is too old. Because there's a lot of that in our industry. There's a lot of ageism going on.
Yeah. Well, also, if it is, that's illegal, so...
But there's no way to prove it. That's the problem. Like, this is a topic, I don't know how much time you spent on Facebook, but if you go on Facebook and you talk to the OG game people, this is what everyone's talking about. Anytime somebody leaves a job, they can never find another job because they're too old. And everyone's now like, how do we prove it? Like, how do we prove that it's my age is keeping me from getting the job over these people who are not even half as qualified as I am? But you can't. Because it's at will in California, like they can fire you for any reason. They don't have to have a reason at all. They can just say, we don't want you here anymore. Get out. And then proving that the reason that you didn't get the job, when all they can say is like, they came up with some idea in the interview that we really liked. They can come up with a million reasons why. So there's a lot of people in our age group in the industry right now who are very frustrated trying to find work. So anyway, I hope that's not the case. I hope he just left on his own accord. But congratulations on an awesome job at Xbox, and good luck moving forward. Larry Herb, by the way, is his real name.
Yeah.
Everyone calls him Major Nelson, but his real name's Larry. So best of luck to you, Larry. Hope you end up someplace where you're going to enjoy the rest of your career, because he doesn't have a whole lot of time left to work. In fact, he may just be able to retire.
One would hope.
I mean, if you've been working at Microsoft in that position for 20-some years... You could retire. Whether he wants to or not, that's the X factor, I guess.
Don't make assumptions these days.
That's true, because he could have 5 Lambos. Somehow I don't see it happening, but he could. So anyway, Major Nelson leaves Xbox, and then we got some rumblings finally about next year's Assassin's Creed. Obviously, Mirage is coming this year, and it turns out that next year's game is going to be Assassin's Creed, and right now it's called codenamed Red, because it is set in feudal Japan. This is kind of the Assassin's Creed everyone's been waiting for a really, really long time. Because there's been rumblings about it. When Kotaku would always break, because they would get all the scoops on Assassin's Creed for whatever reason. They have some plant there who's very reliable. But they would always talk about...
There's a guy who takes the right plane flight every once in a while.
Yeah. But they'd always talk about there's this version of Assassin's Creed set in feudal Japan. And maybe this is the year. Well, now apparently next year is the year we're finally going to get it.
People always seem to think it was like a really natural setting for that, I don't really see why. I know they're kind of ninjas, so I guess the temptation
sneaking
to
around,
make them like a tenchu thing.
Stealth stuff.
But like old style Japanese architecture doesn't really lend itself to the Assassin's Creed style thing.
That's a good point.
They weren't super tall buildings. They weren't super, they were very
pagodas,
wooden paper and things. Hard to climb.
Yeah.
You're probably going to need a grappling hook in this game of some kind.
That's a good point.
And like, I don't know. Like, and now you're hitting the point. It's like, it feels like Ghost of Tsushima already kind of did it, and did it with more verve than Assassin's Creed has had in a very long time. Certainly more visual style. Yeah. So how do you do this game and make it interesting? I mean, it's Assassin's Creed. It's going to sell, but like, I don't know. Like they are up against 15 years of expectations. A couple of other games have done something similar. The Ghost of Tenchu, and like, I mean, it's a high wire act to some degree. Yeah. And coming back to this, the open world RPG idea after sort of the bloating of the ancient trilogy and maybe the palate cleanser or disgusting shot of nasty tequila that Mirage might turn out to be. Like, who knows? What the attitude towards Assassin's Creed will be after Mirage. Yeah. And maybe people will be excited to see the open world come back. But then I don't know. Like, there's so many X factors on this.
Yeah. But anyway, we should probably start learning more about that game here. Well, probably not this year, but probably early next year would be my guess. They haven't really blown out Mirage, to be honest with you. I mean, the game's coming out here in a couple months, and we only have like 2 trailers and a little bit of gameplay.
Well, I'm going to say that that's probably smart, because like anything you do now is going to get swallowed up by the Baldur's Gate 3 Starfield frenzy in the next month. It almost seems
like the more I like it, the less interested in it I am.
And I think you'll see a lot more after Starfield. Yeah, I think September you'll start to see more of a blitz on Mirage, because you're never, even if you get mind share in that kind of dead zone in mid to late August, no one's going to remember it after Starfield hits, and everybody either loves it or hates it or both, and argues about it for the whole.
Both sides still playing it for like dozens of hours.
Sure.
I would add. So,
sure.
Yeah, you're right.
But I think you're going to have to do something like what movies do, just really blitz the final month before release with Mirage.
Yep. Well, this next story, we kind of blew it earlier when we kind of were talking about another story, but we did learn, finally, what this year's Call of Duty is going to be this week. We talked last week about how some NBA players had played it at the Summer League in Las Vegas last week, and now we're starting to get some first information about what the game actually is, and as it turns out, is very similar to last year's game, which was Modern Warfare 2, but it really wasn't. It was like this completely reworked and reimagined version of Modern Warfare 2.
The titles of these really just refer to some of the characters are the same and the setting is the same.
Yeah.
They're not the same story at all.
Right. Well, this time, they're reworking and they're redoing Modern Warfare 3.
Well, are they remaking Modern Warfare 3? Or is it
it's just like the Modern Warfare 2.
So it's just a sequel to the new Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah.
So nothing like you're not gonna. There's not going to be an extended, boring submarine.
No, there should be like a new campaign and new multiplayer. And they said it's a standalone game. It's not like something that you just download to augment Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah, the old Modern Warfare 3 was real bad.
Yeah,
really the game that put me off. Call.
Well, it was the first one where it went down.
Yeah, well, because that's when
it was ascending.
It was the first one after the Infinity Ward core people went to form Respawn.
Yeah.
And it showed.
Yeah. It was still a good game, I thought. But it was the first time where the trajectory went down instead of keeping going up.
It just didn't. I don't even remember. I remember a really bad submarine section. And that's all I remember about that game.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I get the idea in my head to replay the whole series.
Oh.
Just like go through like all the...
You could do it in like 2 days. Because the campaigns are like 4 hours long.
But it's just... but then I'm just like...
Yeah. Nightwing through 3060 said, Matt said grappling hooks automatically 10 out of 10. So you must be a big Tenchu fan then.
Yeah.
Or Sekiro. Sekiro had the grapple hook.
One. Dying Light's grappling hook was very good.
Yep.
Tenchu's grappling hook was very good.
Yeah.
That was the big hook.
The big hook
of Tenchu. You want all this fucking remake shit? You want remake Tenchu 1? Like, I'll do that.
Seriously.
Like I thought Tenchu's never really been matched in that regard.
Yeah. It needs remade too. Because if you play it now, it needs remade.
To be fair, the Xbox is it 360? One of the Xbox Tenchus was basically had a bunch of remade Tenchu 1 levels in it.
I wasn't aware of that.
It was like at least the Punish the Evil Merchant thing was the first level, the same thing, and it's basically the same idea. I can't remember which one maybe it was Tenchu Z. I can't remember.
Tenchu to me disappeared like after the PS2 era for the most part.
They had some Xbox. They had a Xbox 360 one, and they had a terrible, terrible Wii one.
I don't remember that at all
because it was like. I think it was like almost like a turn-based timer game.
Oh, really?
It was very weird. It was not Tenchu. It was Tenchu the way like one of those weird Dynasty Warriors spin-offs is Dynasty Warriors. It was just not what you think Tenchu is going to be.
But I do agree with you, Matt. Like Modern Warfare 3 is not one of those games that people hold up as like I can't wait to like play it again, or I can't wait for them to remaster it or remake it. It's not one of the stalwarts of the franchise.
They're just using the title on these. It's Modern Warfare. There will be Modern Warfare 4 next, and who knows?
Even though there never has been one.
Yeah, well, now there will be. They learned not to stray too far.
Well, look, Modern Warfare 2, last year's game, is like the best-selling Call of Duty ever. It had gigantic sales, so I'm sure they have their hopes set high for this one doing as well. I think it's smart that they're carrying over unlocks and things like that from Modern Warfare 2 into the game.
Yeah.
I think that will help get people on board with Modern Warfare 3. But again, I think a lot of people feel the same way you do about Modern Warfare 3. It's just like this. It's not like to Ghost level. Ghost is like the one that everybody points to as like the worst Call of Duty.
Ghost is, I think, universally disliked.
But I think it's in that class.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how it does.
Infinite Warfare for some reason, which is probably my favorite one after the original 2.
Yeah, me too. I loved it. But no one else did, unfortunately. Everybody just wants the same thing over and over again. It's really disappointing.
Maybe someone else could make a far future military shoot, because I thought that was really interesting.
Me too. I loved it. Yep. And for someone who plays Call of Duty every year, I really loved it because it was refreshing.
Yeah.
And that's the last time I played a Call of Duty game, and I was like, oh, this feels like something new. They're trying new ideas. And since then, because it didn't sell very well, they're like, nope.
No, run from the new.
Pretty much. Some more Naughty Dog news from this week. I told you there's a lot of housekeeping this week.
They started stripping all the mobility abilities out of the game after that.
Yep, took all the jetpack stuff out. Yep, totally made the traversal much more simple. More Naughty Dog news this week. There was a big departure at Naughty Dog. Evan Wells has left Naughty Dog. I know to you guys, you're probably like, who the hell is Evan Wells? To people like Matt and I, he was the leader of Naughty Dog for a long time. Like,
yeah, he took over from... Didn't he take over from Ruben?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was the guy. So there was the year, I think it was, that E3 ended up in Santa Monica. And we were just running around these hotels in Santa Monica for the most part. We had released a review for some Naughty Dog game like the day before. It was like a Jack racing game or some crap. And like we didn't give it a very high review at Game Trailers. And he hunted me down and pulled me out of a meeting with another developer. He knocked on the door and looked in, and we all looked at him. He pointed at me and went like this and pulled me out. And I was like, and I knew immediately what it was. I was like, oh, F.
What a naughty dog.
Yeah, exactly. And he pulled me out of there, and it was him and some other guy. I didn't even know who it was. And they just laid into me over this horrible, crappy Jack game. And I was just like, look, man, like, first of all, this is weird. Racer? It was like it was either a fighting game or it was some kind of weird spin-off of like the Jack franchise. And he pulled me out of that meeting, and I'm like, what are you doing, dude? He's like, you can't just like slag our game like that. I'm like, we can. We did. There's nothing.
We just did.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, you can't pull me out of a meeting with some other. It was bizarre. But anyway, the reason I tell this story is because he used to be the man at Naughty Dog. He was the guy. And he's fallen by the wayside as Neil Druckmann has ascended, and I don't think that has anything to do with him leaving, by the way.
Probably not, but Neil Druckmann has definitely alpha-dogged the shit out of that company.
Absolutely. He has become the leader, and now he is the unquestioned leader. So with Evan Wells leaving, now Neil Druckmann moves into the catbird seat at Naughty Dog. I can't say most people are going to complain about that.
No.
His creative vision can be parlayed into so many different franchises. It's not just about The Last of Us or Uncharted.
No, the date you're talking about lines up with Crash Team Racing.
Oh, that can't be right.
2007.
The original Crash Team Racing?
It was a PlayStation 3, PlayStation Portable version.
Maybe. I thought it was some Jack game. So maybe I have my years mixed up. Or maybe it was like GDC that he pulled me out. I can't remember. Maybe I've got it wrong.
GDC is when a lot of weird shit happens.
Yeah.
I've noticed that. Like, GDC is where we got accosted by one of the developers of Bloodwake. Remember that game?
I do,
the boat combat game, and like they were real mad.
Sneaky says, I fear for what Druckmann will do with Naughty Dog now. And he says Evan is a class chap. You're right, he is. Despite what he did to me that day. The funny part was, after that happened, we were like bros after that. Like, we laughed about that for years and years.
Because the last Jack X Combat Racing was 2005, and that was the end of all that crap.
I think that might be it.
Yeah? Because that was like would have been 2 years later that he did that too. Then
it wasn't. It was we had just published it. Whatever it was. Like, that's what I'm saying. It might have been like GDC 2005 or something.
Okay. Would have been 2006 because it came out in October. So like the next fall, sometime in early 2006, like maybe DICE or GDC maybe.
Yep. But after that,
DICE is an event that someone might feel bold enough to do that.
Everyone's drunk all day.
Everyone's drunk. Yeah, it's just constant debauchery.
And that is in January.
Like that would that's like
that
right
been, as the year turns over. Yeah.
And that would have been a full. I was like, let's get him. Like,
there he is. I see him in the room there.
I see him. Give me a drink.
Yeah. But the funny part about it all is after that happened, like I stood my ground and was like, we're not changing the score, man. I don't know what you're doing. Like, we were not going to do that. And like, we were best bros after that. Like, we laughed about it. Like, I remember that time you pulled me out of a meeting. He's like, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. He's like, I was out of control or some crap. But anyway, he is gone, and he has also made his share of money. He's not going to have to work ever again if he doesn't want to, and I doubt that he will.
Why would you?
Because he was a Naughty Dog guy. Like,
oh yeah, he goes back to the beginning.
He loved that place. Like, he was there from...
He was around when it was Jam Software, wasn't he?
No, I think he showed up for Crash 3, I think was the first game that he worked on there. Something like that.
Jason Rubin and some other guy founded it back in the day, right?
Yeah, and then Rubin just sold his share, and then He went off and did a bunch of different stuff.
After Jason Rubin, he was around long enough to say that Crash Bandicoot 1 was more 3D than Mario 64 could ever be.
That's right.
Which is one of the most batshit quotes in the history of game dev.
Yeah. Sneaky says he did start with Crash 3. That's what I thought. Andy Gavin was the other co-founder.
That's right.
I don't think he stuck around long either.
Yeah, that's a name I've not heard in a long time.
Seriously. So anyway, Neil Druckmann is now the head honcho at Naughty Dog. I think that's good. Like, he kind of was already.
I don't know if it's good. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Like, it's how it was going to be.
I do wonder when
the man has pushed them into the stratosphere. Of course he gets rewarded that way. Sure.
I do wonder if he does have kind of a consistent tone with the stuff that he works on.
Does.
I do wonder if that's something you want spread across like the entire portfolio.
I mean, I don't think his tone worked in any way whatsoever for Uncharted 4, as everyone is well aware. I think that was a horrible, horrible mismatch of writer and game. I know he worked on the other Uncharted's, but he was working under Hennig's supervision and let loose. I think he turned it into a nastier, less self-aware thing.
Yeah,
and it didn't
you're
work.
right. It was no longer Indiana Jones, the video game.
No.
It lost its levity in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
there were still jokes, but
there's a lack of respect he had for the core cast that does not exist in Last of Us.
That's
because
true.
They're his characters.
Because they're his characters, yeah.
But I will go to my grave insisting that Nathan Drake would not have done what he does to Elena in that game.
If Amy had been the one...
If anyone who knows that character, especially at that point in the series, would not have happened.
Yeah.
It doesn't make... It's a 70s sitcom level miscommunication.
Well, the crazy part, too, is that Uncharted 3... their relationship was better. That was to me, set. It drove the whole game.
Well, and also that was one of the big twists.
Yeah.
In 2 was like, oh, they're fine. Yeah. Everything's cool.
Yeah. Well, there's a scene of them in 3 at a fence where they're talking to each other, and it's just like the stuff that happens in that conversation is just like earth shattering for their relationship, and
they navigate it.
Yeah, I feel
there's not a chance in hell that Uncharted 4 Nathan Drake wouldn't have felt comfortable telling Elena about Sam.
Right. Yeah.
The only reason to not tell her is because he was embarrassed as I was that they were dragging this stupid ass character into the story.
Yep. So anyway,
I'm curious how the fantasy IP they're working on will turn out, how involved he is, if that's going to be a different tone.
I think I would like that tone in that though. His tone in that game.
I mean, it would also make sense in terms of that kind of fantasy. You sort of expect a Game of Thrones element to it, so that his tone is sort of that.
Yeah.
Basically, if you want the game to feel like an HBO series, which is not a coincidence they went with HBO for that Last of Us show.
Yeah.
Neil's your man.
Yeah.
If you want something else, he's not.
Yeah. And Evan kind of was that other guy.
Yeah. And look, if that's what Naughty Dog is going to do, if Naughty Dog's going to churn out games that are of that quality and that tone, fine.
Yeah.
Someone,
you're also only going to get them once every 5 or 6 years.
You can absolutely specialize in that. There are Sucker Punch doesn't do that.
Yeah.
There are other developers in the stable that can do different things.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Sony Santa Monica can make a fun thing easily.
Yeah.
I mean, now that they're done doing the Sad Dad God of War thing, they could do something different. They're very Cory Barlog is very versatile in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to specialize in this one thing that has been basically obscenely successful, sure.
Yeah. A couple more stories before we get into the bulk of episode 350. First up, this week, the voice actor who plays Adam Jensen, is that correct? The lead character of Deus Ex?
Yeah.
The voice actor who plays Adam Jensen shared that he has not heard anything from anyone regarding any new Deus Ex games in years. And if you remember, Embracer now owns the Deus Ex license. Embracer is in deep financial doo-doo. It needed this $2 billion deal to go through. It didn't. It did get $180 million a couple weeks ago from some other lender. Things are not looking good. Here's the problem, though, with Embracer in general, is that Embracer owns so much IP, and I'm just going to show you right now how much IP they own. And if they, in fact, are in deep trouble, we're in deep trouble. because there are so many. There's so much IP that it owns that may just disappear forever.
Oh no, it won't. It would all be sold off.
But so you sell it off. Okay, good luck selling it all. 2, who gets it? Then how long after they get it is there actually a game based on this IP? Look at how many they have. This is insane.
But how much of that is anything anyone cares about? I mean,
shockingly, a lot more than you think. I'll say that.
I mean, I
started going through it.
I've seen the list and some of it, but a lot, I mean, yeah, like, would you like? But again, it's like, yes, people care about Risen, but when was the last time you got a Risen game? You know, like a lot of this stuff is dead already.
I mean, Borderlands, Brothers in Arms, Alone in the Dark.
When was the last Brothers in Arms game?
Well, Ubisoft dropped the ball with that license, right? Wasn't it Ubi that had it for a long time?
That was Gearbox.
Was it Gearbox that owned it?
Gearbox had Brothers in Gearbox was supposed to deliver like 8 games on that contract, and they did like 4. Borderlands.
Look, Darksiders, you can go through, like, there's a lot. Like, there's none of them are like The Last of Us level, but they're all like...
Anything of value will get sold off in a fire sale the same way that happened with Interplay and all that stuff. And yeah, it'll, you know, I mean, they also own a Lord of the Rings.
Right.
I mean, all that stuff will be distributed out somehow or another to cover debts.
Yeah.
You know, it'll probably be sold ridiculously cheap unless it's something that's actually important. Like, do I think anybody's going to get a bidding war over Red Faction? Probably not. But, like, you know, all that stuff's worth something. Except maybe, I don't know, there's a few things in there. I mean, I don't know. Hellboy? Do they really? That must be the game license. Do they own actually? They buy Hellboy from Mike Mignola? Or
no. I think they have the game rights to Hellboy. Yeah, and there's a new Hellboy game in development right now. But there's Legacy of Kain. Like, if you start looking through
again,
this,
though, Legacy of Kain. What's the last Legacy of Kain game? 2004.
No, I get that, but they're still beloved IP that people like hope are going to be revived someday, and someday maybe it'll be a decent game. Like, there's big IP in there, is what I'm getting at. Like, if you actually go through it, you're right. Half of it is trash and stuff most people don't care about, like Painkiller or whatever. And
we saw how well Saints Row worked out for him.
Well, but could have been an IP if they actually put a good developer on it. Could have done well.
That's the same developer that made all the other Saints Rows. Like,
you're right.
They did everything not wrong, but like, you know, no, I don't. It's not that big a deal, and they will probably come out of it fine.
Well, this all starts with Deus Ex. That's what started the whole story. That's a big IP.
But Deus Ex hasn't gotten a new installment because
Square Enix had it.
Well, because what was the last? Mankind Divided was a giant bomb.
Did it bomb?
It did not do well.
I know it didn't sell gangbusters.
I mean, it was supposed to be part 1 and 2. They never
was it?
Mankind Divided doesn't really have an ending, so to speak.
I didn't know that. It was supposed to be part 1 and 2.
It's definitely implied that there's more to the story at the end of that game.
Yeah.
And
that was a big game, too. I never finished it. I could not get my butt to the finish line in that game.
It was long and repetitive.
But that's one of the IP that, you know, now what happens to it? Disappears.
I think the resounding answer to that is probably who cares.
Yeah.
Because the people who liked the first one that Square Enix Eidos did, didn't seem to like Mankind Divided tremendously, and the people that like the original Deus Ex don't like any of the modern ones. Like, it never quite found its identity, except when H Bomber Guy did a 3.5-hour video that was titled "Deus Ex: Human Revolution is Fine."
Yeah. So anyway, just something to keep an eye on. Embracer has a lot of IP. It's bought up all these. And by the way, the consulting agency could have told Embracer that it was buying itself into a hole.
Well, Embracer is trying to gather as much stuff as they could to be an attractive thing to be sold to a larger company.
How much? I mean, but the company would have to be so big.
Well, yeah, they wanted it to be sold for $2 billion. That's what they were asking for.
I mean,
about just a month and a half ago, they were going around asking to be bought for $2 billion. Mm-hmm. Largely because they have the Lord of the Rings rights.
Yeah. Which you could parlay that into a profit.
You're not gonna.
Just that license by itself, you could.
Well, I mean, they built Amazon out of a bunch of money for it, but it was a bad choice. Mm-hmm. Like, the thing about the Lord of the Rings is there's one story in the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And trying to tell anything else is going to be like, oh, it's like, you remember that Final Fantasy X clone RPG that EA made around the time the movies came out called the Third Age?
I don't actually.
It was an RPG. It was literally Final Fantasy X. I think it's called Lord of the Rings: The Third Age, and you play as a little fellowship working for Gandalf in secret, and you have like a ranger and an elf and a dwarf and a Gondor guy and a magic person. And you're just no hobbits, but you're basically the fighting part of the fellowship, and you are literally like a day behind the Fellowship at all points. Going through the same journey as Lord of the Rings, just like a day later, short.
That's the worst idea ever. And that's why I forgot about it.
And it was just sort of like, okay, like,
I mean, it's legitimately an also ran.
Yeah,
literally an also ran.
running behind the Fellowship. And it's basically retelling. Like, there's nothing else to do. Yeah. Like, you can do side stuff if you're going to do like a big scope game thing. Like, I think Battle for Middle Earth 2 did a pretty good job where they turned it into, they added on like the battle in the North, and the kind of the war in the North and the rise of the Witch King and stuff, which is an interesting. But like, that's part of the whole tapestry. Yeah. If you want to tell one of those stories on their own, there's no ending, because the ending is Frodo drops the ring in the volcano. Like, you can't actually have a climax to your story, because the climax of your story is 4,000 miles to the southeast. Like in all the prequel stuff, the Second Age thing, like in the Amazon show, like I don't hate that show, but it's like, it's not the story. It's not it's like the outcome of that story is not finished enough to be the end of a story, because it's the reason the real story happens 3,000 years later.
Yeah.
Like, and so what are you telling me this story for? It's literally just backlog.
I never finished it. I got 4 or 5 episodes in and lost interest and never went back.
I did. I mean, it's fine. But like, my reaction to the most expensive TV show ever made, it cost them $1 billion, should be more than it's fine.
I thought it was boring. I was bored watching it.
Yeah, it's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, well, I like the Lord of the Rings films, though. But
yeah, the
not
films.
That show. Yeah, exactly.
Read the books. That show is very accurate to the books in terms of pacing, tone, and writing.
It's true. Yep. So anyway, something to keep an eye on. Embracer owns all that IP, and if it goes down, that IP, who knows what's going to happen to it?
Embracer's not going down. That's the thing. Is like.
It's not generating a whole lot of revenue.
Doesn't matter.
And it has like 300 studios that it has to pay employees for.
It will shut down a lot of studios, and a lot of jobs will be lost because of their poor management and stupid plan to sell themselves out. But they will still hold the IPs. That thing will still exist in some form, and at some point we're going to be willing to take money for them, or they will get more funding and start up more standard development of the different IPs. But you're one way or the other, that regardless of what Embracer was doing, it was very obvious they were just trying to look appealing. They never were intended to do anything with any of those IPs, except for the few that they thought might, Darksiders, they gave another shot to.
Lots of studios.
Saints Row, they did a lot of stuff.
We got to do something with them.
Right, because they wanted to look good. But now that plan failed, and now they're going to contract into something that's more reasonable. And the main problem is hundreds of people are going to lose their jobs because of that.
It's true. Also,
I don't care if we don't get another fucking Risen game.
You and nobody else. Another story from this week, we finally got the release date and the price for the PlayStation 5 Access controller. It is coming December 6th for $90, which I was really surprised how low the price is on that. I mean, a DualSense controller almost costs that much. And this thing's crazy. Like, I think I've talked about him before. I have a friend who I've known for a long time. I tell stories about playing games with him from the N64 and PlayStation era all the time. He's a DJ. He had, at like the age of 36, he had like 4 strokes. It's insane. Like, still nobody knows why he had the strokes, but he's now disabled. And he was like my gamer bro for like 8 years. Like, he and I played every game together. I lived above him in an apartment. He lived below me with his girlfriend. Really good friend of mine, and he has not been able to play video games. And he told me that is the worst part of his stroke, is that he has been unable to continue to play games. And so I sent him a link to the trailer for this, and he was like beside himself. Because he already tried the Xbox accessibility controller, and he's like, it wasn't good enough. Because he's really disabled. He can hardly move his hands. His motor skills are really bad. But this, he's like, the way that it's modular, he's like, I can actually customize it so it will work for my disability. He's like, it's very hard to make stuff like this in a one-size-fits-all for people with disabilities. And so he was over the moon about this. Now we find out that the price of it is reasonable at $90. Again, I don't know why they're waiting so long, like instead of, having it ready there in November for Black Friday and stuff. But the bottom line is you will be able to get this for Christmas if you're interested in this, and at a reasonable price. I think this is awesome, and I'm really surprised that Nintendo has still yet to do something like this. It's the only one left. So maybe we see something like this from Nintendo in the near future. I mean, Nintendo's interfaces, that's something it's usually very good at. I would be interested to see what Nintendo would do with something like this. But for whatever reason, nothing yet. So, again, PlayStation Access Controller launches December 6th for $90. And then one of the final stories, and actually one of the big stories, Matt, from the last week, there was a report that like 87% of all video games ever made are like lost into the ether right now, meaning that you can't easily access them or play them. The medium, for whatever reason, is having a really tough time archiving and making games playable past 7 or 8 years, because what happens now, the consoles die, the networks go down, they stop supporting their online functionality or whatever, and the games just go away. So it was good to see.
The OS changes.
Right, yeah. So we got a little bit of a ray of light for some of these older games this week, courtesy of Limited Run Games. Matt, you're a customer of Limited Run, aren't you?
Now and then, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it announced this week that it's bringing back a bunch of classic franchises. The Jurassic Park collection is one of them. I was not aware that there was a lot of frothing demand for the Jurassic Park collection.
I mean, there's a lot of Jurassic Park games from that era.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this does not have the ones from the Genesis, so I will not be buying it.
Yeah, I saw that comment on SIFTD as well. People were like, wait a minute, where are the Genesis games? And that's a valid point.
Yeah, the Genesis games were the good ones.
Right.
Like, so it's a choice.
Yeah. But again, this is an old game that could have just disappeared and died, but Limited Run is doing...
licensed games do tend to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, good luck getting any of the old Marvel games.
I mean, it's surprising that they can do this with the license. Like, how did they even get through all the paperwork for something like that?
I mean, the Jurassic Park license is dead in the water, other than toy merch, so I'm sure...
But the films are over now?
Yeah.
Oh, really? They're not going to make any more films?
No plans right now.
Really?
That was the end of the trilogy. It's over.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Because I thought they all made tons of money.
They did.
And they're just going to stop them. That's very un-Hollywood.
What else are you going to do? Like, they need to come up with...
Start a new plot.
There is no new plot. They already used the same plot again anyway.
Yeah.
One of the notable... much like Avatar, one of the interesting things about the Jurassic World movies is they made billions of dollars, and they had no impact on the culture. Nobody quotes them, nobody references them, nobody talks about them. They were just little rides people went on, and that's the end. It's not like Jurassic... people quote Jurassic Park all the time.
Yeah.
But the Jurassic World movies were eye candy that just went away.
Yeah. I enjoyed them.
I liked the first one okay. I really didn't like the second one.
I just watched the third one
and the third
a month ago.
The third one was
time.
fine.
It was okay.
It's fine. It's... Look, it's weird. Like, we rewatched all of them in preparation for the end, the last, the Dominion for the last one. I didn't think I was ever going to be in the position to say that Jurassic Park 3 is the best Jurassic Park sequel, but here we are. None of them are good, but Jurassic Park 3 is pretty short.
Yeah.
It's like an hour 30, hour 40. It's a Joe Johnston film, so it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Characters talk to each other and deliver dialogue to one another. It has a story that takes you through it. The effects are pretty good, and you're done.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's like
that's what you want.
Because, like, look, that movie, the only good one is Jurassic Park 1.
Yeah.
Like, that movie is a singular
entity,
landmark thunderstrike in film history, and one of Spielberg's best movies, and that's saying something.
And it still holds up.
It still holds up. All that CG still, because they were working so hard to prove that CG could do what they claimed it could do, and they didn't know until that thing came out the back end of the computer.
Yeah.
And it still looks great. Partly because it's in the dark and in the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were smart back then. They knew.
So I think it's smart to repackage a lot of this old Jurassic Park content from back then, because Jurassic Park 1 was such a landmark thing, and tons of people have good memories of that time period and that IP of that era. Certainly if you were a kid then. I was a little older. I was 15 or 16 then.
Yeah, I was a teen.
I saw that movie 5 times that summer.
I saw it like twice, I think.
Yeah.
You're right. It was a landmark release for sure.
I always think of... I don't like Orson Scott Card very much because he proved himself to be something of a homophobic bigot later on. But like I think it's Ender's Game opens with one of the later printings of something he did opens with the dedication to Steven Spielberg. I waited 30 years to see those dinosaurs. Thanks. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. They're also bringing back a couple other franchises. Tomba? Matt, do you have any affinity towards Tomba from the PlayStation 1 era?
The only affinity I have for Tomba is the commercials.
Yeah.
Where everyone loves Tomba.
Yeah.
And Tomba loves you.
And nobody cared about the game, though. It just came and went. Like, I think I had one friend that got it or whatever, and I played it for like an hour and was like, this is crap.
Well, the second one was pretty good, as I recall.
I never gave it a chance. After the first one, I was like,
neither did I, but remember, I worked in a game store in 98, 99, and we were, it's at the end of that era, and we had every PlayStation 1 game you could think of that wasn't super rare, and so I played it there, and it was Tomba 2 is pretty good.
Huh, interesting. They're bringing back Tomba 1, so...
Well... Whoops. I don't know how you don't do a collection of both of them for this.
Right. Yeah. You think 2 would be easier to license as well, but yeah, I don't know if there's a lot of interest in this. And then the other 2 that they announced that they're bringing back, one is Clock Tower, which I think is a good idea. That's one of those games that's like heralded, but people haven't had easy access to it really at all.
Yeah, is the first one?
Yeah.
Because there was a whole thing where I don't think that one ever really came here.
It did eventually, but it was like a year and a half later.
I thought Clock Tower 1 here was Clock Tower 2 in Japan.
It was, yeah. But it still ended up, the original game still ended up making it across the ocean. But you're right, the first Clock Tower here was actually Clock Tower 2 from Japan. So they're bringing that back, and then they're bringing back a Gex collection.
You're talking about something nobody asked
Nobody ever cared about Gex. For some reason, though, Matt, he did end up like being somewhat of an icon for early 3D games.
Because they forced him to.
It's so weird.
Of all those stupid mascots that no one ever cared about, Gex was the one people didn't care about the least.
Most. Yeah, you're right. And they always tried to spruce him up. Like they always made him try to look like James Bond or
it was the second one was Enter the Gecko.
Yeah.
I mean, the first Gex is just sort of a generic platform. The second one they leaned into the sarcasm and the satire and kind of made that. And then 3. I don't remember what 3 was. Maybe 3 was Enter the Gecko? I can't remember.
It doesn't matter. Again, why would you bring this? I mean, it's good that they're preserving these games. I think Gex is worth preserving. But is there a market for these?
Who was the voice of that?
I don't remember. Oh,
Dana something?
Dana from Saturday Night Live. Dana...
Not Dana Carvey.
Yeah, I think it was.
No, it's not Dana Carvey.
Really?
No,
I thought it was.
No.
That's the first name that came to my mind.
No, it's not. It was not Dana Carvey. It was some other person.
It was a celebrity, though.
It was a celebrity at the time. Mm-hmm. Dana Gould. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Thank you, Corey Film. That's right. The voice is different in each region. Vincent says because there is if you look at is it England? Is it the UK where there's a version of Gex in one of those games where the dub voice is just really bored proper Englishman. And it's bizarre. But it's all the lines are the same, so it's all the weird sarcastic.
But he reads them
like
with no
it's
energy.
Tail time and all that shit. And he's like, it's tail time. It's like everything is like someone is. It's like he's constantly at tea.
Yeah,
and it's very funny. Look that up.
Okay.
If you if you let me pick the voice as like an option, all the international voices.
Then you might play.
Then I might go in for that.
But anyway, the Gex trilogy. I don't see a lot of you guys jumping off the
deep
sidelines.
cover Gecko. One of the weirdest things about those games is how often it implies he's having sex with human women.
Right.
And it's just like, what?
You're this big.
Yeah.
And
what
you're
is
a lizard.
that? What it's like everyone got so upset when Sonic kissed that princess.
Right.
But it's like, man, it's
That's
not
nothing.
even the beginning of like the weird animal mascots doing shit.
Did Earthworm Jim ever intimate that he might be getting intimate with human beings?
No, I think. Well, actually, that princess that princess is in that game.
Yeah,
like a space princess,
right.
Or is she like a chicken or something? I can't remember.
Yeah. That's another franchise that doesn't need to ever come back.
No, especially the guy who created that turned out to be a dick, too.
I mean, that's kind of the irony of all these people freaking out about 87% of games.
What do you mean you're not
lost. That's kind of okay.
You mean you're not excited about the Amico Earthworm Jim game that totally exists?
Princess what's her name? Yeah.
That's right, Princess what's her name.
Yep.
So I almost had it by accident there.
Anyway, there you go. That's our housekeeping for episode 350. I told you there was a ton today. Just lots of smaller stories that aren't worth giving their own topics in GameFace. Before we get going into the bulk...
Still took an hour and a half.
Yeah, exactly. Before we get going into the bulk of the show, here's a word from our incredible sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Cray Mass, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit
international competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted.
Big thanks to LS Cream. Head to creamls.com/sifted. That's SIFTD. Head on over there. They have a brand new site that they just relaunched. It is awesome. Probably the coolest liquor website I've ever seen, I have to admit. Usually they're really boring and drab. They've really done a lot with that website there. There's a lot to poke around and find. Recipes for all the awesome drinks that you just saw in the ad. And as I always say, you know, support gamers, support sifters. It's way better to give your money to someone who's starting in their own small business, who loves games just like you do, versus some liquor conglomerate. Because really, there's like 5 liquor companies that own like all the brands. Like a lot of people who launch liquor companies, they own, maybe LS Cream is this as well. I don't know. But a lot of people launch their liquor brands just to get purchased. Mm-hmm. They get an X amount of distribution at bars and restaurants and stuff like that, and then they just get snatched up by a conglomerate. Have no idea if that's what they're doing at LS Cream, but if they are, I'm totally cool with that because he has put in his time. He has paid his dues. So head to creamls.com/sifted. Make sure you use that URL so they can track that you're coming from Sifted, and they know that our people are supporting them. I know you guys are, though, by the way, because you guys, I get messages all the time on YouTube. I get messages from you guys on Twitter. I see it. Y'all are going and using that URL and buying yourself some LS Cream, and you should because it is flipping awesome. And with that, it's time to get into the bulk of GameFace episode 350. We're going to kick things off with easily the biggest game release of the week. That is not a high bar to clear, Matt. It has been a slow week of game releases, but undoubtedly the biggest is a little Capcom game called Exoprimal. You can see the lower third there. It probably should have been a Dino Crisis game because it is a Dino Crisis.
Yeah,
the game is a dinosaur crisis.
Although if you slap that name on this game, people would be mad.
They would be mad. They'd be very mad. And I still don't understand why this game exists, but we don't have a new Dino Crisis. I will, now that I've played it for 20 hours, I still don't understand. I did, man. I played this game for like 20 hours.
I don't think I even got to 2.
Yeah. I knew it, though. I knew you were not going to play it very long, and one of us had to spend a lot of time with it, and so I jumped on the grenade, and I spent...
Do you really know more about it than I do, though? Because it doesn't seem to change.
Not a ton. Not a ton.
Also, I was very amused that the three exosuits that I was actually interested in are the 3 locked ones.
Oh. Yeah.
And I was like, well, so much for that.
Yeah. So...
I might have played it more if I'd been able to use, like, one of them. Which I guess you can buy them. Like, you can, like, pay for a jump
It's
start
a paid
thing.
game.
Yeah.
You pay for the game already. And this is... So this very... If you... I don't know if you may have played it already because it is on Game Pass. But this
I
game...
do appreciate the opening line of this game, which is, people, technology, under threat from dinosaurs. Yeah. I'm just like, well, that's one way to lay it out in the thesis statement. Well done.
I mean, this game is designed very much like a free-to-play game. But it's not. I mean, it's free if you are a subscriber on Game Pass, but otherwise you pay for it on other platforms. And it is set up like a free-to-play game. It's all about cosmetics and tricking out your exosuit or unlocking new exosuits.
Yeah. You don't have limitations on how many games you can play a day. That's about it.
Yeah, that's true, actually. So just so you know what the setup is, there is actually a story behind this game, and there are tons
of... a lot of story
There's
here
a lot of story, and
like,
tons of cinematics, and, like, it's really crazy.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
I didn't expect this at all. I really thought it was just going to be bare bones, like, dinosaurs are attacking, go fight, and then, like, that was it.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be more of, like, an Earth Defense Force thing.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we got a premise, go do the thing.
Yeah.
But this thing, like, they let this writing team loose, and there's, like, a whole multiverse thing, and, like... different people, versions of themselves meeting from different timelines, and so, I mean, it's bonkers. Like,
it really is.
And the game doesn't need it at all. Like, it has nothing to do with anything you're doing in the actual game. It's
very
amazing.
little. Very little. So it does. It has tons of cinematics. It has a story that it tries to tell.
Like, it's basically a really, really elaborate explanation for why the same character is in the match once in a while.
Yeah. Actually, you're right. That's a good point. The game is set in the years 2043 and 2040. It actually is set in 2040. Is it set in 2040 and then it jumps to 2043?
You start in 2043
and it jumps backwards.
And the AI takes you back in time to 2040 before the shit went down on the Jurassic Park, not the island thing.
Right.
And you play your war game out there, and then you go back to your time.
Your time.
And it's pulling versions of all the Exo Warriors from all the different realities and timelines to compete in this thing that it's gathering. Also, the name of the company is Ibius, and you're supposed to pronounce it Ibius like that, but some of the voice actors pronounce it IBS. And so sometimes they're like, let's get in there and win this for IBS. It's like, okay, we're all fighting for irritable bowel syndrome.
We hate diarrhea. It's funny. So as you can see, you start by creating a character. The character creation tool is very simple.
Yeah. I mean, you're in a mech most of the time anyway. So.
Yeah, you never even see the character really. Like, only in the cutscenes, like when you go back.
You can swap mech suits whenever you want, which is actually nice.
It is cool, yeah.
You got to have those mech suits on hand and set up.
Yeah, you have to have them unlocked or whatever.
You can swap your role whenever you want.
Whenever you want, like right mid-match as well. But anyway, it is set in 2043 and 2040. And you go back to 2040 to participate in war games that have been constructed by an AI named Leviathan.
Which is like, I don't know why you build an AI that's supposed to help everybody and be this benevolent thing. You name it after the biblical sea monster that people sometimes use to justify the idea of dinosaurs existing before the flood. It's like, yeah, of course it went. Like, what was the sister mainframe? Behemoth? Like, what are you doing? Like,
well, what happens is this
stop giving AIs like disturbing names. Like if they called GPT Belial or something, it's like, why would you call it that?
Well, what happens is you're in this crew called the Hammerheads, and eventually your ship crashes. And a lot of the plot tries to explain why that happened. Why did your ship crash in the present day? And then it jumps forward to 3 years after that, and the vortexes, I don't even know what that means, has unleashed a dinosaur outbreak across the entire world. You play as Ace.
Yeah, something happened in 2040 on this island that ruined everything and causes vortexes to pop open and dump dinosaurs everywhere, to the point that the weather report at the beginning of the game is talking more about vortexes and where they're going to open.
Yeah.
So the job of this crew is, among what seems like probably a bunch of other crews, you circle around this island, which has a giant shield over it, patrolling as to whether dinosaurs are popping out of void, and apparently it's a very boring job and nothing ever happens. But in this case, one of the portals opens up right in front of the ship and it gets hit and everything goes crazy and they crash.
Yeah. And
then Ace bails out in the exosuit to save it in case something bad happens to it, and ends up getting pulled back in time by the AI to have a tutorial mission.
Yeah, and then he ultimately forces you to compete in the war games. And as we said, it takes them back in time 3 years to the exact date. And then
it's implied the war games happen every time right before the big catastrophe, like over and over and over and over again.
Yeah,
and like the very first time he zaps everybody out, and right as you're being zapped out, you look, because I guess what happened was there's a space elevator that's connected to an orbital platform, and it collapsed and basically decimated the island. And at the end of the tutorial, you look up and see it start to fall, and then you get zapped away.
That's Leviathan, by the way. Yeah. You're seeing in the B-roll right now.
You will see him pop up and give like the same speech, the same satirical of how stupid corporate bureaucracy is speech thing. It's like the winning team will gain bonus existence. You should be excited about this. Like, that's literally the shit they're saying.
You actually sound just like him.
It's very repetitive, and like, I get it, but also it's just like it's about as subtle as a trout to the face. Like,
Now, this game borrows influences from a lot of different things. Obviously, Dino Crisis with the dinosaurs. Also, there's a whole lot of Anthem in this.
There is some Anthem for sure.
Depending on the exosuit that you use.
Early on, I had to adjust the fact that you do not have the mobility of Anthem.
Right.
That's what Mursame was one of the ones I wanted to play.
Now, there are certain exosuits that do allow you to kind of fly and hover.
So
but
yeah,
you don't have the freedom
some
of
the ones I
movement.
wanted to play as, and they're locked.
Yeah. But you don't have the freedom of movement like you had in Anthem. You can't just take off and fly wherever you want and then land wherever you want. It still happens within reason. But a big part of the game, as Matt is intimating, is the exosuits and figuring out which exosuit works for you. Each one has its own set of attacks. And in fact, that's one thing I would say about this, is each exosuit really is different.
Yeah.
Like, they don't really borrow any attacks or abilities from any of the other exosuits. They're all kind of unique.
No, they have a... like they all, there's 3 roles basically. There's assault, tank, and support, but they all do it very differently.
Yeah,
which is to their credit.
Yeah, and there's more exosuits for like the assault class than there is for like there's only like a few tanks when you first start the game.
Yeah,
but
I think there's like 3 tanks and a locked one, and I think there's like 5 supports, and there's more. It's like
a lot of assaults.
7 assault ones or something. It's
And I found myself playing mostly assault.
Yeah, but you need more assault. You really only need 1 tank and 1 support.
Yep, you need 1. And team composition is very important in this. And I will say this too: the game.
If you don't have a tank, you're going to die.
You won't. You have no chance.
Yeah.
Yep. And so the game does a good job of reminding you too that you know what, you don't have a tank, and what Matt was saying earlier, being able to kind of re-choose your exosuit in the middle of battle is very important, because sometimes you spawn into the map and you're like, oh my god, we don't have a tank. And almost instantly, one of the 5 players on your team will just swap into a tank exosuit. And the objective of the game, so here's what happens. This is like the beforehand, where before the AI transports you back 3 years, you go to this little lobby here where everybody uses their emotes. It's the only time you use the emotes in the entire game. So you go here, and then he transfers you in. And then the objective of the game is you are on a team of 5 players, and then there's another team of 5 players that you're competing with, and it's a race. And before I played the game, I thought that, like, the other team was, like, on one side of the map, and you were on the other side of the map, and you're both doing the same thing, and the map is symmetrical. But that's not how this works at all. The other team is kind of in another dimension, fighting in the same area that you're fighting in, and fighting the same enemies.
You can see their ghosts.
Only after you complete the wave. So how it works is, after we finish this wave, we'll defeat this Tyrannosaurus or whatever. For a brief moment after that happens, you can see the other team. They're like a red shade, like ghost or whatever, that you can see in the map. And then you run as quickly as possible to the next wave that's somewhere else on the map. And then once you get there and you initiate that wave, you can't see the other team again. And every time you finish a wave, Leviathan, the AI, will tell you, the other team finished this wave faster than you, or you finished this wave faster than the other team, because the objective is to finish all the objectives first. So it's a race to complete all the different mission types. And they do mix them up a little bit. It's not just constant, like, dinosaur slaying, like you're seeing right here, straight out of Overwatch.
Well, this is the finale.
This is the finale of this mission. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a random thing where you can choose. You can either pick one or the other, or you can pick random, where it's either the finale will be either PvP or PvE. And PvP seems to be this.
Straight out of Overwatch.
It's yeah, because in this one, the other team is actually on the other side of the map, and when you're both trying to get to the same location, and then you get into conflict at the location.
Because the 2 cubes come together at the same point, and then it's a big fight between the teams where you actually fight against the other team.
Yeah.
Because you can blow up their cube, and they have to wait, and it'll stop moving, and it'll sit and wait while it
repairs.
It repairs itself. That could give you a huge advantage.
Yeah. Killing somebody, because, like, it takes like 15 seconds to respawn, and that's an eternity.
Now, your teammates can revive you if they find you.
Although that's not easy when they're being swarmed, because the dinosaurs are still attacking you while this is happening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you get the Dominator things where, like, each team can summon a dinosaur that they can control.
Yep.
And if you got a player-controlled Carnotaurus ripping shit up, you got to focus on that.
Yeah. The last part of every mission is different. Like,
and then the PvP one seems to be more like both teams just sort of kill as many dinosaurs as they can with a time limit sort of thing.
Right. Yep. And then there's times like we just saw where you have the 2 cubes that you escort to that same place, and then you fight it out, like where they both end up. And then, like 20 hours into the game, I got to another variant where at the end you fight a gigantic boss. Like, it was a Tyrannosaurus that was like the size of like 5 buildings or whatever. But it was us fighting with the other team. So it was 10 of us against the giant boss. And I don't know, I guess they're just like, everybody wins?
Yeah, I mean, that's just PvE. I guess. And maybe they probably count up how much damage each team does
I guess.
the final boss.
Yeah, but I was like, wait a minute, now we're on the same side? And like, I had people on the other team reviving me? I was like, that was a little strange. So they do throw you some curveballs, but it takes a long time. While you're playing, you pick up stuff in the map. But the most important things are these data chips that you come across. And once you finish the mission, you get rewarded with whatever for how well you did in the match, and you level up and blah, blah, blah. But you also get these data chips that you then take to this other interface back at the ship that's like memories, basically. You take the chips and you insert them, and then that fires off cutscenes that fills in the story. And crazy stuff eventually starts happening in this game. Like, so there's like a small mutiny on the ship. Like, one of the guys goes rogue at a certain point. One of the people gets like a ship, like it's a piece of steel, like, and she starts going crazy. Like, it's really insane, like some of the plot lines that they try to like work through in this. But for the most part, after like the first like 7 or 8 hours, like I just started skipping past them, because the cutscenes that you unlock with those chips, for the most part, are just like two talking heads with a bunch of text. There isn't a lot of like actual action in them. But then there are also full motion cinematics that kind of move the plot forward on the ship and explore the relationships between the different people on the ship and the power struggle for who's going to lead the hammerheads and blah, blah, blah. There's all this story that's going on, but none of it is really all that compelling or memorable, honestly. Like, I don't know. Did any of these characters really resonate with you, Matt?
I don't remember it. I mean,
right.
I guess the
exactly.
I guess the Australian guy who sort of knows everything and tells you what's really going on early on is sort of memorable.
Yeah.
But, like, mostly because he's a jerk. Also, I should note, like, they're trying here. Like, the story team is trying here.
Yeah.
I give them credit. And there's some raunchy stuff. There's some weird shit. There's some humor in there I didn't expect.
Here's the race to the next wave, by the way. You can see the other team are the red people right there.
Like, they cut away from it, so someone must have chickened out at the last minute. But there's a pretty graphic masturbation joke early on in the game. From the Australian guy, and I'm just like, I didn't see that coming. Like, it was I don't know. Like, I don't know what was. This game seems like almost like it was made in like Rogue. Like it like they didn't have permission or something. It's so weird.
I was really surprised.
That's very funny. I didn't see that animation before.
I was really surprised by the quality of this game, because it is up to Capcom quality.
Yeah, this is not like a Dynasty Warriors thing.
Yeah, this isn't some like little spin-off where they gave them like a 30-man team and it's like, yeah, okay, go ahead and make something and we'll just count on it not doing very well. The production values in this, the game, bug-free, clean, runs like grease lightning.
They put a ton of work and effort and time into this complete waste of time.
It really is remarkable.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, and like, you know, my main response to this game, playing this game, is nothing. Like, it's just like, oh, all right.
It is just a time eater.
Yeah, it is a video game.
I talked on Ash Ain't Anything about...
indeed a video game.
Yeah, I talked on Ash Ain't Anything in a recent episode about sometimes I'm just playing games and I just like almost like go like out of my body and look at myself playing. And this is one of those games where I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I spending my time on this game? Because it never really changes. Like, they really don't even mix up the dinosaurs all that much. It took like well over 10 hours before I saw like a new enemy type.
Yeah, well, I saw the trophy. I saw the trophy for killing 100,000 dinosaurs, and I'm like,
I may have already done it.
Maybe I don't. Here's the thing about this game to me that like bothers me. It's fine. It's entirely fine. There's nothing really wrong with it. It's other than like maybe some of the weird pay to play aspects, like this loot. But it's like, it's not that prevalent. Like, the thing that bothers me about this game is like sitting there thinking like tons of people put tons of their life and time and work and effort and money
family
and all this
time
into this, and it's gonna be gone in 2 years.
Yeah,
like this
no
one's gonna care. It'll slowly sort of fade away. There'll be less and less content updated. It'll get shut down, and then you want to talk about games that get lost. Like, you're never gonna be able to play this again.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying you'd want to play it again, but it's just like, there's
no single player in this at all.
It's so along the lines of that sort of game as a service trend that is already over, and like this feels like maybe it's just sort of lagging behind. That
2 years
curve.
late. Yeah,
and like, but it's just an example of this kind of thing where it's like it's not like this was a disingenuous attempt to cash in on some trend. It was. I think they really did try to make something worthwhile here,
mm-hmm.
but there's only so much you can do with the format, and
it gets repetitive very quickly.
It just feels like such empty calories.
Yeah.
And like it's like a shame. It's a weird shame to me that this,
because it is a quality product. Like the workmanship in this is good, but it's just the whole concept just has no longevity. Mm-hmm. It's another one of those games where you're just constantly waiting for all your attacks to cool down. Yeah. And you just fire them off in sequence as soon as they cool down. There's very little reason to fire them off in a specific sequence. There's no team-based attacks where you're like, hey, if I fire off this attack at the same time the heavy fires off his attack, it combines to do... And there's nothing like that. You go out, you run around with 4 other players, you blast a bunch of whatever, it's a bunch of dinosaurs, and then at the end, it's an X factor as far as how it's going to end. Either it's going to be like this... or it's going to just be, you just have to finish it before the other team does. It's just another wave. Or it's a big boss that you fight, and instead of the other team being competitors, now they're a part of your team. But that's the only real twist to the game. You don't know how the end of each mission is going to end, but you know you're going to shoot the living crap out of a bunch of dinosaurs.
Which I didn't find particularly fun. Like, I don't think dinosaurs are a very interesting enemy.
Well, because you kill like 1 billion of them.
Yeah.
They just become fodder. Like, you don't even think about the fact that it is the absurdity of the fact that they are dinosaurs in the first place.
Right. And for some reason, I don't know why this is, but I kept thinking about, Earth Defense Force. For some reason, killing hundreds of ants doesn't feel as empty as killing hundreds of raptors. It just feels like these animals should be more dangerous than they are.
Yeah.
And whereas ants, just ants. Like, who cares? Blowing insects and spiders away, whatever. I don't know. And, like, they're hard to hit. Like, they're top heavy and they're narrow, so, like, start to get headshots really, and, like...
And headshots do matter.
Here's the
chip stuff that I was talking about earlier. This is where you go. This is the interface that you go and place your chips, and it just tells very simple...
I don't know why Leviathan looks so much like a disappointed Christopher Walken to me.
He does look like Christopher Walken. I never thought about that, but you're right. Also, there is... It's not an RPG. There's like 3 different items that you can assign to your character that are just basically
it's
buffs.
Very standard. I mean, it's not even Destiny level.
And you can level those up, up to like 5 levels for each one of them. And then also your primary weapon for your exosuit, eventually you can change. But literally, like... I fought with, like, this assault exosuit or whatever. I did not get a meaningful, like, real weapon upgrade until, like, level 27. Level 27! Like, that's a long time to wait to get a new weapon in a game like this. And then I got it, and I was like, okay, it wasn't that exciting. So this isn't one of those games either where you're constantly... I mean, there isn't any loot. That's nice, I guess. You're not constantly, like, collecting a bunch of doodads or whatever, doohickeys.
Although also, like, that's part of the treadmill on these kinds of games, so why are you playing at that point?
And that's what I did find. Was like, I was like, why am I playing this? Because, again, like, the meaningful updates to whatever exosuit you're playing come so few and far between. It's just like...
And, like, that's not what dinosaurs do. I mean, maybe they did. Who knows? But I don't associate dinosaurs with a giant rampaging horde of, like, overlapping monsters. Like, it's so weird. When I think, if you described them, it's like there's going to be a game where you have a team and you fight dinosaurs that are invading from the past. I would certainly not envision, like, Velociraptor Zerg Russians. It's so weird. Like, not necessarily bad, but, like, it's so weird.
I just never had magical moments in this where, like, everything came together.
No.
Where, like, the tank came in at just the right time and used the exact right ability.
And you can
then I used mine, and, like, there's just...
No, it's nothing like that.
The most rewarding part of this is when you can hit, like, 50 dinosaurs at once and they all fly up in the air.
You can tell there's, like, they worked on it, they tweaked things, like, the fact that they all... Early on, I'm like, how come they all have glowing red eyes? That's very weird. But then you play it, and you're like, oh, they have glowing red eyes, so you know which ones are alive and which ones aren't. Right. So you know what to shoot at, basically. So, like, clearly...
Because that is confusing at times.
Yeah.
Well, because some of them take a long time to die.
I mean, it's like a Starship Troopers game.
Yeah.
Like, it's so weird. Like, I don't know. What is that? Like, it's like some World War Z shit. Like, it's not a thing I imagine dinosaurs doing.
And I think the capper here in Nightwing 3060 says it in chat, like, just where the hell is Dino Crisis?
Yeah.
Like, what are we?
Why wasn't this a modern day remake of Dino Crisis 2?
Why are we playing this instead of Dino Crisis? It makes no sense.
And I'm saying, like, it's like, skip Dino Crisis 1, fuck Dino Crisis 1, do Dino Crisis 2, the action game, because that was the most interesting thing they did with that franchise. I would play that. And you know, you think about Dino Crisis 2 remake, it wouldn't be gone forever in 2 years.
Once again, another project for the consulting aid. We could have told them this is so dumb. Like, it's
another project for the dumpster of history is what it is. Like, and it's like not as an insult to the work done here. I don't think it's a bad game at all. It's just there's not a chance in hell this is going to catch fire.
I know. It's just like, why does it exist? It's actually a good game for Game Pass.
Yeah. Like, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
It's sort of
like, I'm done. Like, I played this way more than I should have, in all honesty. I have no interest to go back and play it again. Because I played it for 20 hours, and, like, I've seen it all now. And none of it is especially compelling. Mm-hmm. So, that's Exoprimal. It's available for everything but Switch. And as we said, it is on Game Pass right now. And that is pretty much the only way I recommend that you play it. Because it's basically free.
Yeah, I mean,
if you're a Game Pass subscriber, download it, give it a go. You'll probably enjoy it for a day and a half before you burn out on it, and then that's about the point where you realize it's the same thing.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Dino Crisis 3 flashback on this, where you're like, really? This is what you thought was the way to go with it? I mean, it's way better than Dino Crisis 3.
Which was a travesty.
Yeah. But it's still that same sort of like, why are you so dedicated to not giving people what they want on this one?
It's almost like they're trolling.
I'm not saying Dino Crisis would be like a giant runaway Resident Evil 4 remake style hit either.
Yeah.
But it would probably do better than this.
This game feels like a troll to me. It feels like they're trolling fans, which they're not, obviously.
This game feels like if you were going to write, like in a movie, if you were going to come up with a game that didn't exist, that people were playing because it was supposed to be the game the kids and the family were into, it'd be like this.
Yeah.
It's like dumbass mechs in a multiplayer shooter against dinosaurs. Like it's that kind. It feels like there'd be like fake screens of it, like in the background of a couple of shots in the movie. But then you're like, oh no, this is real. They did this. By the way, they spent tens of millions of dollars on this.
By the way, Anthem, way better game than this. By the way.
Yeah, Anthem did feel better.
I enjoyed the living crap out of Anthem compared to this game.
Anthem did have those moments you're talking about.
It did, yeah. Every once in a while, it had one of those, like, eureka moments. This game? No, there aren't any. So I don't know what Capcom was thinking. I'm glad the game's out now, and they can just move on to something else. There will never be an Exoprimal 2.
Yeah, this is... And look, there's a game in here somewhere. The concept has something in there, but it ain't a live service, brainless fill-the-bar shooter. Yeah. Like, because I don't like those anyway, and nothing in this makes me change my mind.
Yeah. Let's go and see what you guys are saying about this, see if you have any questions for us about it. But again, it is on Game Pass, so you can answer a lot of your questions yourself just by downloading it. Vincent says, because the team would make a new Dino Crisis is making Resident Evil games. I mean... No,
I think watching the B-roll here will tell you everything. I mean,
it does.
It's probably not worth the download time.
Kevin Rafa, what was Capcom hoping and expecting with this game? It's hoping to create a game as a service that can deliver recurring revenue.
Yeah, but I don't know why you'd ever think this would do it.
Yeah. Rock and Roll 458. I'll take games no one asked for 100, Alex. Yeah. That's pretty accurate. Is it better than the various Resident Evil multiplayer spin-offs? I think it is actually.
Yeah, it's easier. It's easier to get into. I would say it's like you said. It can be like a dissociation game. You just sort of brainlessly play it without thinking because it's not difficult.
Yeah, it's not. Ernesto Presto 86, great username. Exoprimal was Capcom's tax write-off, except they're Japanese, so I don't know. I don't even know if there are loopholes like this in Japan, but that's what it would seem like. But I don't know. And Vincent just answered your question, actually, because Capcom wants a game as a service. Yeah, everybody does. Every publisher wants one of these. They want a game where they can just keep releasing DLC for it and keep generating buku revenue. It's what PlayStation is doing right now.
Sure, but at a certain point, Capcom might need to admit that they're never going to make that.
I mean, they just sold buku copies of Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Right, which is
just keep doing that. Yeah, just keep doing that.
At a certain point, just admit your business model is this and not that.
Yeah, and we're cool with that other business model.
And I promise you, yes, it's not an endless supply of infinite money. Yeah. But I bet you Dino Crisis 2 Remake would have made more money than this will in the end. In the long run.
Oh, yeah.
And you wouldn't have had to put up any servers or do any of that beta testing, or it would have been way easier.
I have no idea what Capcom's thinking here. But the game is out now, and it's over, and it's done. And it'll be on Game Pass for a while. People will play it for a while.
All that stuff is very cartoonish, but just think about, some of the dinosaurs look pretty good in there. Imagine, doing Dino Crisis now with the tech they have for RE4.
I know.
Imagine what they look like now. That T-Rex coming through the window, that's kind of that famous sort of, scene from the first one.
Yeah.
How great would that look now?
Here's the countdown, Matt, to Capcom telling us how many people played Exoprimal. Consumed by 5 million people in the first week. Meanwhile, 98% of those
how many
are
people
Game
in the second
Pass.
week?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Oh, anyway, there you go.
Is that a full price? Is that a $70 game?
I don't think so. I think it's $60. Yeah, but it's
still
even paying $30 for it. It's a free-to-play game.
Yeah,
it is a free-to-play game parading as a paid-for game. So there you go.
I guess if you ever wondered what Earth Defense Force would look like with a budget,
right?
I guess this is kind of that.
Yeah.
But other than
actually, I kind of enjoy the jankiness.
No, the Kusuge element of Earth Defense Force is one of its appeals.
It is, absolutely. Yep. Okay.
I want to see that giant robot wiggle around with the stupid physics engine every time I hit it with a machine gun.
Or the ants when you blow them up.
Oh yeah,
it's so funny.
The cheap assness of that series is part. I think
it's part of its charm.
To the point that when Iron Rain was the Western developed one, they went to good.
Yeah,
they went too serious with it, and it wasn't fun anymore.
Nobody liked it. Yep.
No.
Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about the other game that I played this week. And again, it has been a slow week for games. And part of the story about this is what I had to do to play it. And this game is Oxenfree II. It is developed by Night School. Is that what it is? Or is it Night Dive? Night School, I think.
Night Dive. Sounds. I don't know.
I think it's Night School.
Night School?
Maybe.
The last game I played by them was Oxenfree 1, so it was a long time ago.
I think Oxenfree 1 was 7 years ago or 8 years ago.
That. Night Dive is a different thing.
Yeah.
That is also a developer.
Yeah, but Netflix bought the studio. Netflix now owns it. And so if you are a Netflix subscriber, you can play this game for free. And if you may remember, I dropped Netflix months ago and I haven't had it for months. And I'll be honest with you, Matt, I have not missed it at all. Mm-hmm. But I was strategic, and I was like, okay, a new season of Black Mirror launched, and then the first season of The Witcher launched, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to get it for a month so I can watch the new Black Mirror, and then make sure that the second half of the season of The Witcher launches, which it does on July 27th, I believe. So I got Netflix a couple days ago for all that to get it all in the next month, and I was like, you know what? I can also play Oxenfree 2 for free. Well, there were some kinks to that. So I go on the Netflix website. I'm like, okay, I want to download the PC version of Oxenfree 2 and play it on my PC. I didn't even assume that it could work for a console or whatever, even though it is on Switch. And there's no PC version. If you get it for free from Netflix, you cannot play it on PC. There is a PC version, but they don't give it to you. Mm-hmm. Instead, the only platforms that you can play it on free from Netflix is Mac or iOS. So I ended up playing the game partially on an iPad, although our one iPad was too old and it wouldn't work. It's like, nope, your iPad's too old, so I had to go get the newer one that my wife was using. So I played it partially on the iPad, and then the wife needed the good iPad back, so I had to go to my phone, and I ended up playing a lot of it on my phone. So you can get it free if you are a Netflix subscriber, but you have to jump through some hoops to do it, and you have to use the app on your Mac or iOS device, and then it will say, okay, you have the right platform, and then you just search for Oxenfree, and it's just like searching for a show on Netflix. You just tap it, and then it'll say, do you want to install it? Yes. And then it opens up a separate app from the App Store, which is actually Oxenfree 2. So it will have its own icon on the screen that you can tap.
That seems like it wasn't quite ready to launch.
It's insane and convoluted, but you're right. Like, I have a feeling that Netflix is like, this is our first time doing something like this. Ultimately, I did get the game for free, and I was able to play it. I have not finished the game. I'm about 5 or 6 hours into it, something like that. I did Google it. It looks like the game's about 8 hours, so I'm more than halfway through it. But anyway, just so you know, if you want to play it for free, it is a little bit of a convoluted process, but you can do it. So let's talk about the game. Did you play the first Oxenfree, Matt?
Yeah, I played the first back in the day.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I remember liking it.
Yeah?
Kind of one of those I mean, I get it. It kind of blends with all the other weird point-and-click, adventure game things where, it's like, oh, a weird thing happens. Supernatural stuff gets involved. It's like Oxenfree and Kentucky Route
Zero,
and Thistlewood, whatever,
Thistlewood Junction,
Night in the Woods, and all, all there was that wave of things like that. Forget how long ago it was.
Yeah.
It took forever to get this game out.
Well, the first one follows a group of teens that are on a beach.
Like an island somewhere.
Yeah.
Like a portal's open or something like that.
Yep, portals to other dimensions open and blah, blah, blah. This game has the same concept, and it's set in the same area. In fact, there's a point in this game where you can see the island where the first game takes place in.
Yeah, and again has the obsession with tuning a radio to different frequencies.
This whole game is all about that. Very much like the first one. However, this game does feature an entirely new cast, an entirely new plot. It's just set in the same place, and they're still dealing with the same issues. So you play as a girl named Riley. She's in her 30s. She was in the military. She either flunked out of the military or left the military, and she's come back to her hometown. Basically, with her tail between her legs, she's failed at life, quote unquote. Her dad is also not in good health, and so she returns to her hometown to try to get her life on track and also to be around her father, who needs her help. She takes a job working for this environmental company, and she shows up for her first day on the job, and she meets this guy named Jacob, who, as it turns out, was also in her high school class, but he was kind of the quiet, smart guy, and she just never knew him because she was running around with, the hip crowd or whatever. But he knew her. He's like, oh, do you remember we had history together? We had math together. And she's like, I don't remember you at all. And they are the team, and they're both on the job at the same time. And basically what they're doing is they need to set up 4 of these antennas around the area to track the radio waves from the first game. So basically what's happened is scientists have figured out there's all this crazy stuff going on, and they're trying to sort it out. And you're a part of the team, quote unquote, the environmental team, who needs to set up these antennas so you can track the radio waves and figure out where they're coming from and why they're disrupting things and blah, blah, blah. Well, you go to plant the very first antenna at the top of a hill, and you get there, and electricity shoots out of it, and it goes over to the island from the first game and opens a portal above the island. And that's what sets everything into motion. And basically, you kind of end up going through the same process that the teenagers did in the first game. Now, there's a bunch of different twists to this. There's this other group of teens that are not the teens from the first game who are trying to summon spirits, and they end up attaching themselves to you. So there's certain points in the game where you just get zapped into this other place where these teens are also on a beach standing around, and they're like, oh my gosh, there she is. And it becomes this weird cat and mouse with you and these group of teens while you're all they're trying to summon people from the other world. You're trying to finish the job. As you mentioned, you have a walkie-talkie in this, and a big part of this is tuning the walkie-talkie. So a lot of the puzzles, if you don't know how to solve them, you pull up the walkie-talkie and you adjust the dial, and it will tune into basically ghosts broadcasting. Or there are also on the walkie-talkie 7 or 8 different channels of real human beings that you can talk to. And all that is completely optional. But I will say this, if you decide to play this, go through the walkie channels, because some of the best writing and the best story beats happen through those different walkie-talkie channels, and you're actually talking to other human beings who are experiencing kind of the same thing, but from a different perspective. It gives you a different perspective on what's happening inside the game. So your task is to set up the 4 different beacons around the island. It's an island town in Oregon. And then probably I would say the main antagonist, other than just solving the mystery, is that cult. It's called the Parentage. And they're basically trying to exploit Kamina, that's the name of the town, supernatural phenomena like time travel and space portals for its own ambitions. So if you played the first game, I'll say this, there's not a ton of mystery in this. It becomes more about the relationships between you and your sidekick. And the way the game plays is you just tap on the screen wherever you want to go, or if you're playing on PC, you just click, and the people just go there automatically, the two, and they're together, they're kind of tethered together or whatever. Now, some of the new additions to this, other than the walkie-talkie, is climbing. So you're out of the military, you're a really good climber. Your sidekick is not. And so there are certain points in the game where you have to go one way and you can climb and get there more quickly, and he has to go the long way and like take the sidewalk. And so there are kind of branching paths in the game, but there aren't enough. So this is kind of an open world game. It's this huge sprawling map that you play on. And there's no load times. You can just go from one screen to the next, and it's gigantic. But there's also no fast travel. So there's lots and lots of backtracking in this, where you get an item here, and you need to take it all the way back to the beginning. You have to run it manually through all the screens to get back to where you need to go, and they walk really slowly. That became really annoying to me really quickly, was the amount of backtracking you have to do, and having to remember. And again, playing this on my cell phone, it was so small. Like, I had problems reading. So you've probably seen already in the B-roll, like, prompts will just pop up above the character's head. You need to tap them very quickly before they go away, or otherwise you don't register a response. Those responses change the story and will branch the story off in different directions. Playing it on my cell phone, I couldn't even read them before they would disappear. They were so small, and it was like white text on like a light blue background. Like, there was lots of times where I just didn't respond at all because I was trying to read them and they disappeared before I could. Now, playing it on Switch, on a TV, or on your PC, that's a lot different. But again, if you play this for free, you're probably going to be playing it on a tablet or your phone. And I had problems dealing with the smaller screen and the way that the game is designed. The game is non-linear. So once you install that first beacon, and you have to install the other 3 still, you can do those in any order that you want to. But I also found that it made the narrative a little broken and weird. There was at least one instance where someone said something to me, and I had no idea what they were talking about. And I don't know if it was like a mistake that the developers made, or it was referenced before and I just missed it or whatever. But there were moments when I played this where I was like, oh, maybe I put the wrong beacon up first and went to the wrong part of the island, and I should have done one of the other beacons. But it lets you do it in whatever order you want to, which can create some freedom. But again, it also creates a good bit of backtracking, which to me is the most annoying part of the game. You use the walkie-talkie a lot. You walk a lot. Thus the lower third, walkie-talkie. It is really kind of a walking simulator. There are simple puzzles that pop up here and there, and they're mostly solved with like the touch screen. Like, you put your finger down on something and then you drag it in different directions, and you try to like line up like geometric shapes. Like, there's puzzles, but they're very simple and very easy to solve. And for the most part, it really is just kind of like a mystery walking simulator. But the good news about it is that part of the game is excellent. The writing, the voice acting, all of it, top notch. Like, the 2 people that they got for the 2 leads in this, which is the bulk of the voice acting and the writing, incredible. Great casting, great job. One thing I really like about the voice actors in this is their tone is very conversational. There's a lot of ums. Like, they speak like normal people do. They say they say like. It's not like they're reading from this script that's written in perfect English and they're reciting it word for word and punctuation for punctuation. They allow some conversational tone to creep in, and it does feel like when they recorded a lot of these lines, they were like, okay, this is what we need to do in this scene. Just say it. And then the actors said it, and then they just transcribed it for the subtitles or whatever. I don't know if that's the case. That's what it feels like, because it really does feel like you're just listening to a friend talk about something for the entirety of this game, which I was really impressed by. Eventually, there is some time travel mechanics. So a big part of this game is how these time rifts open up in the world. Like, you've seen in some of the B-roll, there's these big triangles that open up. Those are time rifts. And some of the puzzles, like later on in the game, like you'll come to something where like an elevator has like collapsed or whatever. A time rift will open up. You can go through the time rift. It will go back in time to where the elevator worked properly, and then you can use the elevator. Like, there's stuff like that in it. But again, they're very simple. Like, there was never a puzzle in this that really made me think for long at all. Like, it's really just kind of like a means to the end, and it's really just the writing and the storytelling that like wins the day in this game. Again, there are branching paths in this. This is something that I kind of screwed the pooch on because I couldn't read a lot of the responses that were popping up above their heads. So maybe I missed a little bit of the impact on that stuff, but I haven't got to the end of the game yet to see how it actually impacts like the conclusion of the game. But I can see how it already impacts how Jacob reacts to Riley, because I've been very nice to him. And at first he's very timid and shy because he was kind of the class nerd, and he's a little embarrassed that like you don't remember him at all, even though you had like 4 classes with him or whatever. And as you're nice to him, even in the early going, he starts to loosen up a little bit. He starts cracking jokes. He starts being a lot more jovial. His attitude towards Riley changes a bunch. So I'm already seeing like some of my decision making and some of the choices that I've made in the dialogue starting to affect what ultimately happens inside the game. But again, I have not finished it. So again, the walkie is kind of the crux of the whole thing. You can see right there the numbers. Those are the channels. So when you first get there, like there's someone who you're working with who's on the walkie all the time saying, okay, now you need to go to the general store to get your gear, and now you need to take the gear up to this mountaintop, and you get there and like you can't get to, and she's like, you need to do it anyway. And so there's mystery behind her because she's talking to people on the phone that you don't know and you've never met, and so you're wondering if like this is all a setup and you're just the sucker, you're the mark that they got to go and do all this stuff for them. And that permeates kind of throughout the entire game, like at least the whole game that I played. I'm still not sure that the people that I'm working for and with are actually looking out for my best interests. And I think that's great. That's like an underlying tension that excels throughout the entire game. As you've seen, the visuals, all hand-drawn art. I think your mileage will vary on that depending on how much you like it. I wish things were bigger. It's very hard to tap, again, on a phone or a tablet, the exact place that you want to go to on the path and make sure that they go there. There's lots of times.
I never had any problems like that with the first game, but I was playing on PC.
Yeah.
It seems like a strange thing to limit to a touch screen.
Yeah.
But obviously you just buy it on PC, I guess.
Yeah. Again, I got it for free through my Netflix subscription, so I just played how I got it, basically.
Right now I think it's only $15.
Is it?
It's a launch discount thing, so I'm sure it ends at some point.
That sounds about right for this.
But I think it's $15 on that on PlayStation. Is it on Switch?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's on PC, PS4, PS5, Switch, and Mac.
Okay.
And obviously iPhone, iOS, Mac, whatever.
No Xbox. Interesting.
No. It'll come, though. I'm sure it will eventually.
Oxenfree II Special Edition.
Right. Yeah.
Game of the Year Edition.
Yeah. But, the branching narrative, it does give you at least some opportunity to want to play it again. I probably won't know how great that opportunity is until I actually finish it and see how different the endings are. Once I go on YouTube and start kind of looking around to see all the different endings after I've actually finished it for myself. As I said, the voice acting is incredible. The music in this is also pretty awesome. It's like synthwave stuff, but it's not like finished synthwave tracks where they're 3 minutes long and there's like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, end. They kind of just draw and drag on. They're kind of like dirges, really. They're almost like one keyboard key that's just hit, and it just lasts for like 10 minutes in a lot of ways.
Music from the hearts.
Yeah, and they'll send it through like a filter or something so it doesn't get completely boring. But the stuff that is a little more structured...
Later tonight, we'll have information on the types of sedatives used by tonight's artists.
Yeah. It does give it a little bit of a Stranger Things vibe, because most of the stuff in that is all synthwave, too. And it does give it a little bit of that vibe. The mystery is definitely kind of Stranger Things-ish, but the one thing I will say is like...
Except it has an actual answer.
Right. Well, the other thing I would say, too, is that like the first game was a horror game. This is really not. This is more of like a thriller, like mystery game. It's not really scary, even though you are dealing with like ghosts and supernatural stuff.
I didn't think the first thing was all that scary, but because you were looking at pixels.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of involvement, really.
Yeah. And so... The visuals in this, your mileage will vary. You can see it. The other thing, too, it's really small. Like, you can't really see the if there's animated faces or if there's much animation at all. I do like the animation in this. Like, the way that they walk and run, I think is pretty funny. It's stylized. Like, the game definitely has, like, a house style to it. Yeah. And I like it.
So did the first one.
It looks like the first.
It's very even in a world where these kinds of games are not actually all that uncommon anymore. You show me this, and I'm going to know it's Oxenfree.
Yep. Absolutely. And they stick it. They stick the landing in this one as well. It doesn't stray too much from the look of the first game. The synthwave soundtrack I thought was good. It does get a little monotonous at times because there are some songs that are just like a drone or a dirge, just like this one note that just goes on and on. The characters have almost like a puppet style animation. Like it's exaggerated. Like they really flare like their elbows and like, I don't know. It has its own look and its own
they're so small, they gotta kind of
ham it up somehow. Yeah. And they always look like this. Like you'll never get a cut scene that's like a close up. It's always from like a far distance.
I saw there's a picture of Riley's face on the map. Yeah. That's about as close as you're gonna get.
Yep. That's the best way that you'll know what she actually really looks like. So yeah, that's Oxenfree 2. I've had fun with it. I think that $15 price tag is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't pay much more than that. If it is like a launch discount, like 20 would be kind of pushing it a little bit, I think. But again, like, you can get this for free if you're a Netflix subscriber, and I know 80% of y'all are.
Although it seems like you do pay for it in a sense.
You do. I mean, there was a point where I was like, is this worth it? Like, when I was going through to play the game, I'm like, this is kind of a pain in the butt. But as a part of your Netflix subscription, that's okay. And I do hope that Netflix finds a more elegant way to do this going forward, because this is a new initiative for Netflix. This is going to keep happening. It is going to keep buying studios. It is going to keep releasing exclusive indie games on its platform. Now, the weird part to me, Matt, is that you can't play it in Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're probably not set up for that.
I really thought that I would be able to plug in a controller to the USB port on my TV and play it on my TV using the Netflix app. Nope.
You thought that?
I really did, yeah. I mean, I think that's what the plan is going to be.
What would run it?
Netflix. I thought it would stream it to me. Like, I thought they would play it on the cloud or what. I mean, this game's fine on the cloud.
Yeah, but they don't really... I don't think they have that... I mean, their app isn't set for that, I don't think.
I mean, but I think that's what their ultimate goal is going to be.
Maybe.
I mean, it makes the most sense. It's weird to, like, not be able to... It makes the most
sense from their perspective, I guess.
It's weird to not be able to play a Netflix game in Netflix. Like, that just seems really bizarre to me. So again, there's some hoops to jump through if you want to play it for free. I would totally be cool with paying $15 for it as well. Like I said, I'm over halfway through. I already kind of feel like I got $15 worth of entertainment out of it. And I am excited. I'm going to keep playing it because I do want to see what happens in the conclusion. They do a great job developing the characters and making you care about them. I guess that's what's most important in a game like this, and they nail it. I've seen some reviews that people said it's not as good as the first. I think the improvements in this offset some of the things where it's not as good. So I could probably put both games on equal footing, but for different reasons. The walkie-talkie in this definitely adds a different dimension to the game that it didn't have before. So there are things in it. There are some quality of life improvements as well. But again, I do wish that they had like fast travel points instead of having to run all the way back through like all the different screens to get back to use something that you collected somewhere later on. But those are really just nitpicks for the most part. If you're into, and I would call this a visual novel more than like an adventure game. It really is more like a walking simulator visual novel. If you're into those type of games, I think this is like one of the top shelf examples of that. So if you're looking for something a little narrative, a little bit of a narrative spin to play during the hot summer months here, I think it's a good choice. And again, you can get it for free if you are a Netflix subscriber. Do you have any questions about it, Matt?
Not really.
Yeah.
Seems pretty self-explanatory, especially if you played the first one.
Yeah. Cinetike says, I understand, I think he's saying Shane's perspective, when they advertise it as it's on Netflix. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the marketing. Mm-hmm. But then you go on Netflix, and it's like they take you, if you do download it, they take you to some other place. I mean, it's its own app on your tablet or on your phone when you actually go to play it. It's not even in the Netflix app. So now you got to search for it in the Netflix app. And it is weird how, from that app, you click on download it, and then it downloads another app that opens up on its own. So they're jumping through some hoops here to make this thing work as well. It's really interesting how they got it to work ultimately. But anyway, that's Oxenfree 2. It is available for other platforms. I would not spend more than $15 or $20 for it, though. All right, let's move on. We're going to give you guys what y'all asked for over the last week. So after last week's episode, a bunch of you guys on SIFTD were like, wait a minute, I wanted to hear Matt's final impressions of Final Fantasy XVI. And I agree. It was an oversight on my part for last week's episode. I should have had it in there. But I hadn't seen Matt in a couple weeks. I had totally forgotten that he never got to really deliver his final verdict on the game. And Matt has been playing the living crap out of it. So I wanted to give him a chance to come on here and talk about his experiences continuing on with Final Fantasy XVI. At this point, Matt, where are you in the game?
Oh, it's been a while. I think I've got 3 of the Mother Crystals destroyed.
Okay. So you have, what, 1 left?
2 left.
2 left.
5.
That's right. There's 5, yeah.
So yeah, I don't know exactly.
What was the big story beat that happened last? It's not a spoiler. Destroying the 3rd crystal.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I haven't played it in 2 weeks.
Oh, you haven't?
It's been a long time.
Okay, well, what caused the pause?
Dave the Diver.
You got hooked on Dave the Diver.
Yeah, which is in another room. So that's kind of the thing. Is like my laptop and everything is in there. I moved it back out yesterday to play Exoprimal, so I might go back to Final Fantasy now. But yeah, Dave the Diver really sort of took over life, the universe. And actually, like this week, I don't really know why. Probably Starfield Mania. I got back into Everspace 2.
Oh.
So yeah, it was.
Do you think this distraction is an indictment on Final Fantasy XVI for you?
No. I like this game a lot, actually.
Me too. Yeah.
I don't think it's perfect, but I do think it's the best Final Fantasy since 6.
I'd agree with that. Yep.
It is the best written Final Fantasy of all time. That is not high praise, but it is better than average. It is. It's engaging. It's weirdly quiet. Like I'm continually surprised by it, not in a bad way, but it's constantly been like, it's more folded in than I expected. Even that team, the team that whatever Creative Business Unit 3, the Final Fantasy 14 team, there's a lot of. You can tell there's a lot of thought put into how things unfold and how they're trying to make you feel and how they try to pay that off. And I thought it was very interesting because I had some of the same thoughts when Steph Sterling made the video about how they hated it because they were running into bigotry in the game.
With the slaves and things like that?
With the branded and everything,
Mm-hmm.
Which is very much like, I mean, it's kind of there through the whole thing, and there is like an element of like, oh, these people are nice to their slaves. Mm-hmm. That's not okay.
Right.
And like, and then you go to the Imperial area, and they're all horrible. Like they're like it's amazingly bad. Like I
think that's on purpose.
It is absolutely on purpose. Yeah. But like Steph,
you got to stick with it.
Steph Sterling was like, oh, it's just showing this, and you never get to fight back against it. And a couple times Clive has a little monologue about it, but nothing. But then if you keep going, there's a 5-year time jump after a big moment, and Clive basically says, agrees with Sid retroactively that like just changing people's minds isn't enough. We have to change the world.
Yeah.
The system is the problem, not the people.
Yep.
And so you basically become a revolutionary who is working even against the wishes of some of the people who are being oppressed. Like there's one of the first things after that time jump, you do a big thing, and all the branded that you tried to save are like, leave us alone. You just make it worse. You leave, and then they punish us, and da da da. Mm-hmm. Which is a common argument against emancipation movements, or abolition movements. Which
you
is
got to finish the job.
Which is like because this system has ways of reinforcing itself.
Yeah.
And like if you just kept going, and then like Sterling did a whole thing, another video. It's like, oh, if you tell me that it gets good after 30 hours, it's not.
Then it
okay,
sucks.
But that's not what anyone is saying.
Also, the game wasn't terrible for the first 30 hours.
Final Fantasy 13 gets better after 30 hours.
Yeah.
This game, that was just how the story was unfolding.
Yeah.
And it goes.
This game
slow.
is pretty great the whole damn time.
But like I think you live through the proper amount of, and like look, Steph Sterling deals with bigotry probably every day because of who they are and what they identify as. But like, and so maybe you don't want to play that in a game because
it could
it's
be
like,
more personal for them.
Yeah,
for
sure. But like I think they do a pretty good job of making you go through this as Clive, and then having Clive realize that he has because Clive is nobility. Clive's a privileged person. He grew up as a prince.
Although he's kind of the bastard child.
Yeah,
I mean, he's Jon Snow basically.
Yeah, there's a Jon Snow element to him. So and of course, and his mother becomes the main bad guy basically behind a lot of the scenes. Yeah. But like. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot of Game of Thrones going on in this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that the game has like a little reference material every time at any moment during any scene, and then when you get back to the base, you can look through giant webs of how everybody's related.
And that's a really cool feature. What's that called again?
Oh, that's that one girl up in the corner with the war table thing.
They have a name for it.
There's a name for it, but I don't remember.
It's really cool. I hope a bunch of other games start adopting that.
But like you've got the one guy up in the thing that in the library that has like the glossary of all the different terms and items, but then you've got this tactical girl who basically you can look at the entire world map and all the political associations between everyone and scroll through the whole timeline of the history of the world and see how it all changes.
Yep.
And you can do the same with all the personal relationships in the game.
Yeah.
Which is like really good.
Active time lore.
So good. Called. Active time lore, yeah. But like although that's, I think, just that's just the encyclopedia that the old guy runs. The thing that she runs is a little different. It's something else, though. But like,
Game's very smart.
That's one of the reasons I'm not worried about going back into it after not playing it for 2 or 3 weeks. Is like I can just read that stuff and remember who everyone is, and also everyone's pretty memorable.
Oh yeah,
overall.
Oh yeah. I mean, the one thing that really struck me as I got further into the game is that it just kept rocking my socks. Like things kept happening that were unexpected. Like nobody is safe in this game. And like I felt that way when we first played the demo because they kill off like everybody at the beginning of the game.
Although I was right about that one thing, wasn't I?
Which one thing?
That Joshua's.
Oh yeah, you were. You were totally right. But that keeps happening. Like big characters die. Like all like unexpectedly.
Like you're like, oh, this is going to be a major attack. Oh no, they're dead an hour later. Okay, cool.
Or just partners too, like people that you thought were going to be by your side, like. And they spend all this time developing these characters, and you really get attached to them, and then they just pull the carpet out from underneath you. Like it's great.
I mean, some of it, like I think who you're talking about. I knew he was dead meat on a hook, but like, because Clive has to become, the leader.
Yeah.
He has to be what he was born to be.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of foreshadowing.
But there's a lot of little things like these two guys that like, you're like, oh, these guys are actually pretty interesting for just the 2 moves you take on your tutorial mission. But like that matters later.
Well, then you run into them later, and it's
it's like the most emotion Clive shows in like 20 hours. It's like, oh my god, you're alive. It's just like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
But that all works really well. Like the character relationships are pretty believable, and like you kind of buy that they're sort of forming this like little coalition, and like everybody's on this page or that page. Honestly, as always, the weakest link is kind of the gameplay.
Yeah.
I do think you can tell that the Devil May Cry guy was involved in this. Like, the combat is pretty smooth, and like the boss battle, like give and take, and the way that kind of works is actually pretty satisfying. The one thing I will say is like, I have my methods of getting through just about everything and like I don't need to do much more. And you see like the videos of people doing these crazy combo things, and I'm like, why?
You don't
like
need
nothing
to,
is going to live long enough to do that. All of it's juggling stuff related. You can't do that with the larger enemies of the bosses. So what's the point that any of this is in the game? I don't understand why that's in there.
Yeah, maybe for later on when we get harder difficulties or something.
Maybe
You're right, that was unneeded.
I have never felt the need. While I've gone into training mode and learned how to do some of those things, I've never found a real world moment where that was useful.
Where you had to do it.
When I had an enemy with a life bar big enough to take that combo, the combo didn't work because they can't be juggled.
Right.
So I don't know. It's fun, but
it does become a means to an end after a while.
It's a little overwrought in places.
But still an improvement over Final Fantasy XV by a wide margin.
Oh, sure, yeah. As Peter Griffin says, it insists upon itself. But overall, it's fun. And I do find myself getting into fights just to like hit things.
Yeah.
I mean, it is satisfying. A lot of the finishers are satisfying. I like pulling off kind of that little elemental combos are cool.
I like a lot of the icon abilities.
The icon abilities are cool. The icon fights are good. Like,
they're fun.
I didn't expect that. Like they're all pretty different, and they feel pretty.
It's the first kaiju fights that have ever felt good, like ever in a video game.
And you feel powerful, but you don't feel invincible. Yeah. Like if you let your guard down or don't get your defense down right, like it'll nail you.
It even feels better than like those GameCube Godzilla fighting games that were like the rage for a while.
Like, if you were going to do a Godzilla game now, I think you use this as your template.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, for sure.
I mean, if Freed even looks like Godzilla. Yeah. I mean, he's got modern Godzilla's face.
Yeah, it does.
It's the snout and the way...
It's kind of the snubby snout.
Like, you take those horns off him, he looks a lot like that Godzilla minus one design they just premiered last week.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good. The music's great.
Yep. To me, the story has held up the whole way through.
The story's really good.
That, to me, was the X factor.
Yeah, I still got my interest. The world is fascinating. I think they do a good job picking out all the different cultures and different places, and everybody has believable. Like, it feels like a place with history.
It feels real.
All the nations have their opinions about the other nations and all the other leaders and stuff, and it feels like you understand how they got there.
Yeah.
And that's really rare in any game, let alone a Final Fantasy game. But again, it feels real. The pedigree of this team goes back to Final Fantasy Tactics, which also did that.
It feels like a world that could exist. It's like when I played like Final Fantasy X or X-2, I'm like, it's just nonsense.
Yeah. But this is the team that made Tactics and Vagrant Story and all those games, all those Ivalice games feel like they are in a real place.
I'll ask you a question.
They are just extremely good at that.
I'll ask you a question that the Sifters asked me for Ask Shane Anything. What's the future of Final Fantasy?
Probably more Nomura garbage.
You think?
I think it's all going to be like Final Fantasy Remake. I would love to see them get every other game, this team, to do them, but I don't know. I really don't know.
I think the legs of the sales are going to matter a lot.
They will, and like again, I hope Square is taking into account this is on one platform.
The other thing too, I haven't seen commercials for this, like hardly at all.
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of promotion.
And I watch sports all the time, and I have not seen hardly any ads for this. At all. In fact, I don't know if I've seen any.
I've seen some billboards in LA.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, they could definitely do more. There's no doubt about it. But I love this game. I think it's great. I really hope that they continue in this vein. But I think best case scenario, alternate between Nomura and this. Every other entry.
There was a Taco Bell thing.
Was there?
You could get like in-game stuff or something for it. I didn't do that. I forgot about it.
But I think that's best case scenario is that we'll get one of these, and then we'll get one of the more goofy ones. Then we'll get one of these, and we'll get one of the more goofy ones.
I mean, if they want to bring this team in and have them do, like the even-numbered ones or something, awesome.
And let's be honest, Matt, we've only got about 3 more of these left in our lifespans if they keep going on this schedule.
I mean, it's amazing how off the rails this series got.
It did fly off the rails.
Like 13 just like threw this thing for a loop. Like it got stuck in that 13 world for 10 years. Yeah. And then 15 was what the hell?
What was that even? Still to this day, I'm like, what was that?
I know like you're dealing with sort of the fallout of 13 verses on that too, but like,
Barry Lomax is asking, what about the PS5 overheating? I never had any problem.
No, I've seen that been a thing. Some people report, but again, that stuff happens to systems sometimes, and like you're just gonna, people who don't overheat are not gonna make long threads saying I never overheated.
They're just gonna keep playing the game.
Never had a problem with it for me, and I left this thing on. I played this game for 8 hours at a stretch.
I would leave it on. I would leave it on overnight.
Yeah,
like just leave my system on. I'd pass out on the couch playing it and wake up like the next day and be like, I forgot to turn it off when I went to bed. So I haven't had any problems with that.
Yeah, even if this is not like the best seller of all time or anything for them, even if it's just we'll see how it goes especially once they expand it out to other platforms. This is the way.
It is. It absolutely is.
Like, it doesn't all have to be like super like kind of traditionally grounded like Western style fantasy like this Game of Thrones influence, but like
they can still have fun with it.
You could make a completely batshit like weirdo sci-tech magitech thing world that still had this level of care and detail put into the interpersonal relationships and the interpolitical relationships, and it would be great.
You can still have an adult write the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can always do that. Like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't have to be stupid.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Like, it really doesn't.
That's what this game proves, really, is you don't have to make games for like 4-year-olds. Like, it's okay. You can make games for people who graduated high school.
And if you absolutely have to, that's what you can have the Final Fantasy VII Remake stuff happen as a side story.
Just keep that whole series going.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to deprive people of what they want.
Like, clearly that works.
Why can't we both get what we want?
Clearly that works for the people that like Final Fantasy VII for whatever reason.
And I'm totally cool with that.
But I would like to play these periodically.
Me too. Yep. So I hope I get another one in my lifetime because I love this game.
Well, I mean, from all reports, if you want another one in your lifetime, go play Final Fantasy XIV and get to the expansion content.
Yeah.
This is all the same people.
Matt, I'm not going to play an MMO.
I will say this, having played a good number, I may play like 80 hours of that and still I'm only halfway to the expansion content.
Wow.
That game does play not super dissimilar from something like, I mean, it's not an action game combo thing, but like you are playing in semi real time activating abilities. It doesn't feel like that stilted MMO feel.
Okay.
It is kind of fun to play. It's just at a certain point it just goes on forever. And
that's an MMO. That's how they work.
You want to talk about Oxenfree having to go back and forth all these different places. At a certain point, one of the few times I ever spent real money in an MMO was to activate fast travel stuff in that game. Because like I'm not walking another 15 minutes back to that, because they'll literally send you from one place to another to talk to someone once and then say go back to the hideout. And I'm like, all right, we're teleporting. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
I'm paying the money.
It costs a little bit of these gems every time, and those gems are real money. But I'm like, I don't care. Like, There's a point at which your time is more valuable than that.
No, you're right. There comes a point where it's like, how much is my time?
But I will say that the 16 definitely incentivizes me to get back on that Final Fantasy XIV horse at some point and really see what Heavensward and all those things are about, because if that's that same team, I would definitely like more of that, please.
Okay. There you go. Matt's final impressions of Final Fantasy XVI. You asked for it, and we delivered. Next up, our last topic for today isn't really a topic, because we're going to go and take a look at how the SIFTD Video Game Fantasy League between Matt and I is going. And I'll just say this, Matt. After going through and compiling everything and looking at it, it is literally anyone's game. I'm just going to bring this up right now. This is the update. So, as of right now...
I better hope Space Marine shows up.
Yep, you do. You need Space Marine to come out for sure. Although, your second alternate is pretty good.
Yeah, Octopath did better than I thought.
Another thing I would say, too...
Fuck you, Redfall.
I was shocked it was a 60, Matt. I thought it was like a 40-something.
It was for a while.
Like, that score has come way up. Like, I'll just be honest with you. Some of the scores, I was just like, what the F are the critics thinking on some of these? I was like, what? Like, Hogwarts Legacy, 84? Are you effing kidding me? Like, that's one of my Game of the Year candidates. Like, I don't know what these people were thinking. Like, some of the scores here, I was like, holy crap. Like a Dragon Ishin is not an 80. It's not. That game is not an 80. Like, that game is like a 65. Like,
I think that comes from giving it to people who are willing to play the Yakuza
to fans.
Games.
Like, these review scores are all screwed up. Like, I was just like, I couldn't believe my Forspoken is 64? I don't know. I was just like, damn.
Look at those 5th picks. Capcom.
Yeah.
Burning the charts up in the 90s there.
Both of us nailed our 5th picks, absolutely. But as you can see, Matt has 4 games left to get scores from. He has 6 total now.
I'm wondering if Spider-Man 2 is going to have that same like Hogwarts Legacy effect.
I don't know.
Or like, remember the first game? It was like an 87.
Yeah.
The first Spider-Man is not an 87. That is a 90-something. If that's an all-timer.
I hear you. Star Wars Jedi Survivor in 82. That's insane.
I mean, I can see that for given the technical issues at launch. Like,
I didn't really have any though.
A lot of people had. I mean, the PC version didn't work.
Yeah.
Like,
but the PC version score wasn't that different from the console score.
No, I mean
that game is better than a freaking.
I mean, I think it's better. It's better than that. But in terms of how you review things and how reviews work, it doesn't surprise me.
It surprised me.
No, that's if that had launched in solid technical shape, it would probably be more like an 88.
Yeah,
but like
I think it's way better than an 82, but that's just my opinion. So Matt has 4 games left to add to his team. I still have 5. Hollow Knight Silksong, Matt. I don't think it's going to launch this year.
Yeah, but then you get your overrated Ishin.
I mean,
80.
Dude, Hollow Knight will get like a 9 at least, guaranteed.
Probably.
I mean, I'm going to lose a full point there. But what the hell, man? What the hell is up with that game? I thought I was not worried about Hollow Knight at all. I was worried about Armored Core. Like,
I told you at the time I was going to let you get 6 Silksong one way or the other. I don't trust it.
Anyway, it is neck and neck, Matt. Like, there is no way in determining who is going to win this at this point. Like, my X Factor, Armored Core is a big X Factor for me, for sure. Hollow Knight, if I have to get like a dragon and get an 80 there, that's bad. Baldur's Gate, I'm pretty confident about. Assassin's Creed Mirage.
Baldur's Gate, I'll be shocked if it's below a 94.
I mean, that's really high, but lower than a 9, maybe I'd be shocked. But
no, that thing's gonna be one of the highest rated games of all time.
Wow!
I will bet you money right now.
So I still have Starfield. That could be, who knows?
Starfield could be a 70. It could be a 95.
I know.
We don't know. Anything in between. Could be anything.
I mean, right now, like if it weren't for Space Marine 2. I would say, and Stalker 2 is a little dicey.
Oh, Stalker 2's gone. Stalker 2
really?
Yeah.
It's not coming out this year?
Not a chance in hell.
Really?
I don't know if they've made it official, but there's not a... No, I have 2... Suicide Squad and Stalker are not coming out. Like, I have 2
I don't think Stalker 2 is definite
Stalker
yet.
2 is gone.
Huh.
Stalker 2 is not coming out
I thought
year.
It still had a chance.
Not a chance in hell.
Really? I thought it did.
They would have mentioned it...
Well, that's why I gave it a not applicable instead of a 0.
I mean, I don't think they've officially said it's not coming out this year, but it's not coming out this year. Not a chance in hell.
Well,
not a
the good news is your second...
Space Marine 2 has to come out or I will have a 0 on the team.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I think it is going to come out.
It seems like it. They've
like
shown
through the whole
yeah.
not E3 stuff, like they were like, it's coming. It's like, I don't think it's even coming like late in the year. I think it's coming like August, September timeframe or something. That's the only thing that would throw it into flux. Otherwise, like, this is neck and neck, dude. Like, look, even our average scores, 82 to 81.8. Like, it is just as close as it could be, man. Like, I'm kind of surprised Fire Emblem ended up at an 80. Like, that's the first Fire Emblem to score that low in, like, 20 years or something. Like, I don't know. I thought these scores were nuts as I started looking through them. But in Assassin's Creed Mirage, that could easily be at 70 something.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, my team has a lot of X factors right now. You have an extra game in the bank already. Your X factor is whether the games are going to come out or not. So I think it's neck and neck. I don't see any way you could figure out who has a higher chance of winning at this point. Like, it just, to me, it looks like dead even. So here we go. We got like 5. This is probably going to be the best season ever of the Sifted Video Game Fantasy League. Speaking of which, I haven't checked in on the Fantasy Challenge for a while to see how people are doing in that either.
I don't know. I forgot to do that.
Yeah, you didn't even enter this year?
I forgot.
Oh, that stinks.
Because I remember you said, like, that's going to happen. It closes, like, tonight. I'm like, I'll do that. And I just didn't.
You forgot.
I forgot.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it looks really close. I don't know what you guys think. Let's take a look at the chat and see if you guys are picking, like, who's going to win here.
Yeah, they have not changed. They have not announced anything beyond Stalker's previously announced release date of December. But I do not believe that for 1 second.
Okay.
December 2023 for that, for a game made in Ukraine that they haven't even shown anything of this year. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, that game's gone. That game's next year sometime.
Playland MX Shane won easily from where I see. I don't know where you're getting that from. I don't know. Barry Lomax says Armored Core looks like it will be good. It does, but that doesn't mean anything.
I mean, I imagine Armored Core's going to be in the solid 80s.
Eth Demon says, which are you going to bite the bullet on the 100 hours for Baldur's Gate? We both are. I'm trying to get review code for both of us right now, so we're both going to play it. I think Matt will probably end up playing it longer and play more hours than I will, but we're both going to play it, so we'll both be talking about it on GameFace here. That's it. I'm surprised no more. That only one person tried to predict who was going to win. Oh, Emperor Dread said it's going to be Matt. Okay, so there's one for Matt, one for me, but that looks like it. No one else is really trying to guess. Cinetike says, to me, it feels like Shane's following picks will come true decently, except Hollow Knight, so Shane wins. I don't know.
I think if Space Marine 2 makes it this year, I probably win.
Everyone's picking. Yeah, that's what I think, too. Everyone is picking me, though. I think they're trying to jinx me. All the people are coming in now saying I think Shane will win. Barry Lomax, too close to guess. That's what I think.
And actually, I could still win if Mirage and Starfield bomb.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, if Starfield comes out and doesn't work and Mirage is really boring.
You got some high scores, dude. 96, 92, and you're going to get Spider-Man. That's easily going to be a 90.
Be up there.
Yeah.
Forza's probably going to be at least an 8 point something.
Yeah. I mean, Forza might be a 9.
Octopath is a solid addition.
Yeah. It's going to be close, man. Real close. And that's awesome. Like, honestly, like, most of our leagues are over by now, usually, and this one's going to come right down to it. We'll be waiting right till the end to see if Stalker 2 launches or not, I think. I mean, my guess is by October or November, maybe they'll say, like, okay, either it's coming or it's not.
I think if that was still coming this year, we'd have a pre-order. We'd have a
maybe
statue edition. Maybe. I think we'd know more by now.
So anyway,
maybe they're playing it safe and just being like, we're not going to talk about anything until Starfield's out, but who knows?
Yeah. So anyway, that's the update on the Sifted Video Game Fantasy League. Maybe for next week, I'll go take a look at the Sifted Fantasy Challenge and try to figure out which one of you guys are leading in that. I just aim for the sky on that because Matt and I can't win. So I literally I don't even think about whether games are coming out or not. I just pick the games that I think are going to score the highest because I'm hoping that one day I just achieve this, like, impossible to beat score by doing that, but that'll never happen because games always get delayed.
That is why you fail.
Yep, exactly. So anyway, there you go. That's the update on the Sifted Fantasy League, and now it's time for That's right, party people. It's time for Name That Game, where I show you 5 screenshots from a video game, and you try to guess the name of the game before that guy. A couple things before we get going. If you won this year, do not play, do not guess, do not chat, do not do anything. Just sit back and enjoy the entertainment. The chat will be on slow mode, which means that you can only put one thing in every 60 seconds, so do not spam the chat with game titles. It is a sure way to lose, because what's going to happen is the next screenshot will come up, and you'll be like, I know it! And you're going to try to type it in, and you're not going to be able to type it in. The other thing is we give away a code for this, a free game for the winner. If you are not a PC gamer, or you do not know a PC gamer that you would want to give the code away to, please don't play. Please let somebody win the game, win the code, who will actually play it, or can give it to somebody who will play it. And again, I harbor no grievances against you guys if you win and give it to somebody else. We just want to make sure that it's used and that it's played by somebody. Once you win it,
get it and tweet it or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can even give it away on Twitter if you want to. But I would ask, if you do that you do mention that you got it from GameFace and SIFTD, just as a little bit of promotion for the site. That would be sweet. This is a different one. This is a different Name That Game than we've ever done before. I'm very interested to see how it goes. It could be a complete disaster. It could be awesome. We'll see. Are you ready, Matt?
We got an FMV game in here?
No, but that will be another wrinkle later on. Are you ready?
Sure.
Chat, are you ready? Let's play Name That Game. Here is the first image.
Ha! Oh, is that...
Ark Survival Evolved? No.
No. Is that Missile Command?
No, it's not Missile Command. That's a good guess, though. Rebel Assault? No. That was from Justin Hornerman. Oh, we have a winner already. Actually, we have a bunch of winners. It got in very quickly.
Pitfall, yeah.
It is Pitfall. That's pretty impressive that you guys got it from that color band. I wondered if it would happen, but it did. You guys literally got it from the 3-color band. That's pretty awesome, man.
I mean, I knew the system.
You did. And I think maybe your guess resulted in them getting it, or at least helped
I
a little
think
bit.
that first one was too fast to be a response to me.
Yeah, maybe. So let's see. Who got in here first? Playland MX. Congratulations. Here is your round of applause for winning Name That Game. That's pretty awesome that you guys got it from that. It looks like a flag from some country I've never heard of. But it is Pitfall. One of my first ever favorite games. A lot of you guys guessed it, actually, but Playland got in just before y'all. Erebus Jones got it. Stucky got it. Evil Only 5 got it.
I got to dig up the letter from one of those old VG and CE magazines where somebody wrote a letter in, and it's like it's basically just lamenting that Pitfall was ever made because it created side-scrolling, and side-scrolling has ruined gaming forever because there's no creativity anymore because it's just Nintendo games now.
Oh, interesting.
Just in case you wanted to know if that complaint has been around forever, it has.
Well, for my purposes of the person who has to set up Name That Game, that was an epic fail. You guys got it very quickly on the
I
first
would definitely
image.
dig up at least 3 letters that specifically name Super Mario Brothers as the death of creativity in video games.
Bad takes. There's some Twitter feeds that are like just bad takes, and just go and collect that.
Didn't
would make
age
it.
too well. Yeah.
Here are the other images that I had for Pitfall. There's that one. It's one of the brick walls. That one, which is the tree canopy, but the way I oriented it in the frame, it could throw you off maybe a little bit.
That's actually very recognizable to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tried to make sure that you couldn't tell it with a pattern that repeats, but you can actually.
And it's Atari 2600. There's only so much you can do.
Here's the fourth one.
Yeah.
That would have probably 99% given it away, and then this one absolutely would have. Yep, you can even hear the sounds in your head, right? It's pretty awesome. So once again, congratulations. Here's another round of applause for our winner. So Playland, to get your free game, you can DM us here on Twitch. You can DM me on Twitter at Dinfire. You can DM me on SIFTD, where I am at Shane. You can DM SIFTD on Twitter at SIFTD Games. Any of those ways to get at us, just let us know, and I'll get your code out to you, and I hope you enjoy your free game. We do have some time left for some Q&A. I am surprised that we got this show out to the full length, though. I really didn't think we were gonna.
One day you will believe.
I know, one day. We do have a little bit of time for some Q&A, at least a couple questions. If you guys want to ask us some, go at SIFTD Games so we can pull them out of the chat easily. Here's one from El Guapo 3385. Either of you doing the Oppenheimer Barbie double bill? I'm psyched for this weekend. Not me. I never go to the movies.
I'm going to see Barbie, and then I'll see Oppenheimer the week after, because all the Oppenheimer showings vanished. because it's only in the IMAX stuff.
Oh, really? How come?
Nolan's very particular about how his movies are screened, so it's in all the IMAX 70mm, like it's all in there.
Weird.
So there was a whole argument over that because like Barbie couldn't get into any of the IMAX big screenings because it was already booked for Oppenheimer. Because Nolan basically cut a deal that gives him those theaters for 3 weeks. Usually it's only 1 week. That's why Tom Cruise was mad, because Mission Impossible is getting kicked out for Oppenheimer, and Oppenheimer is on track to make half of what Barbie's going to make for the opening weekend.
Wait, Barbie's tracking to do well?
Oh, Barbie's going to be a massive hit.
That movie looks so horrible to me.
Oh, it looks amazing.
Really?
It looks great. It's for people who love Barbie and for people who hate Barbie.
It looked awful to me, but I'm surprised. I was at the Warner Brothers thing, and it was all Barbied out.
No, it's gonna
be all the employees there had like Barbie smocks on.
It's gonna be the hit of the summer.
Wow, I'm shocked to hear that.
It's gonna make it was on track for like $100 million opening weekend. Oppenheimer's on track for like $50 million. I think. Wow. Oppenheimer's not an upper. It's 3 hours long, and it's about the
dropping the nuclear bomb.
It's about the invention of the end of the world in some way. It's like, you're not. It's not summer fare.
It also seems a weird movie to watch in IMAX, but
I mean, it's Christopher Nolan. He shot it in IMAX. Everything's in IMAX.
I'm just saying,
whole thing
doesn't really. I don't know. I think of big bombastic action movies for IMAX.
Now you're talking about Big Bomb.
Big bomb.
Well, there's a lot of stuff in it.
Oh, there's probably World War II stuff in there.
World War II stuff. I don't think there's any battle scenes or anything. He already did that. Dunkirk.
That's true. Yep.
But no, I mean, it's Nolan. He knows how to use the frame. Like, I'm not worried about that. But like, also, like, Barbie probably doesn't need to be in IMAX.
No,
either.
It doesn't.
The reason you want to be in IMAX is because the tickets cost more.
Right, make more money.
It's one of the reasons. Why
Tom Cruise was pissed.
Why Tom Cruise was pissed. It's one of the reasons. Transformers and Across the Spider-Verse both sold about the same number of tickets the week after Across the Spider-Verse came out, and Transformers came out that weekend. But Transformers won at the box office by about $10 million because those tickets are more expensive.
Yeah.
Same reason that Avatar 2 did so well. One of the reasons is, obviously people saw it over and over again. But one of the reasons is that those tickets cost like twice what they normally. Like, it's like $17 to see a movie at the Chinese theater IMAX. It cost me $33 per ticket for Avatar 2.
Yeah.
So I wonder why it made $2 billion.
Yeah, that's why. Let's see. EDH420, thank you for Twitch Prime. And he also has a question. Between God of War Ragnarok and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which felt more like a proper sequel? Did one feel like glorified DLC? Well, we've talked recently about God of War Ragnarok, how both of us ultimately were a little bit disappointed in it. But which one feels more like DLC? I don't know. That's a good question, because they're both kind of on equal footing in that regard, I feel like.
I don't know if I'd say that about either of them, but I would say they're both about equal in the sense that they repeated a lot of what came before, and the new stuff they gave me wasn't really what I wanted.
That's a good way to sum it up. I think that's a good question, because it is hard to decide between the two of them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's clearly more work put into both of those games than like a DLC.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's like, did I want to play other characters and divert from the kind of the main quest and divert from Kratos for that long in a God of War game? No. Did I want to play Lego and build all these things instead of actually solving real puzzles? No. Yeah. Like, so it's kind of like more. It's more that. It's not that I feel like they weren't full-fledged sequels. I just feel like both of those games went in directions that was, as James Cameron said about Alien 3, not how I would have done it.
Mellow Pinto. We were talking about Pitfall. Pharaoh Doll says, I was going to go Joust, which would have been also a good guess. And then Mellow Pintor says, I wasn't even alive when that shit came out. There's a board. Sure weren't.
There's a board game channel called Shut Up and Sit Down, which is very funny and run by the husband of Lee Alexander.
Yeah.
If you know. But they did a thing where they have a younger guy on the staff, and at one point, like, they're doing recommendations of games, and he's like, I've got this game. The guy who's our age is like, I got this game, and he's like, it's like, that game came out in like 1997. That's not a new game. That's so old. I wasn't even alive then. Yeah. And it just cuts over to the guy. He goes, I'll make you not alive now, you piece of shit.
Yeah. Thanks for making us feel old,
Very
Mellow
funny.
Pintor. Zed Saber Juno, Shane, if you knew the Activision Blizzard deal was going through, did you invest in their stocks? No. I can't afford stocks. What are you talking? I'm lucky to pay rent every month. No. I think that was already. I talked to Pactor about it. he said that the sale was already baked into their stock price. That as soon as the whole acquisition was announced, its price shot up, and then people were just betting basically on whether it was actually going to go through or not. So he had basically told me, like, there's not going to be a big rip of the stock when it does go through, and so I just kind of ignored it. But I also don't have money to buy stock anyway, so... Drifter J, over the last few years, I've seen some old G4 Tech TV shows popping up on YouTube. Is there any show you'd like to see again? I still like Portal. It's where I got Drifter from. Oh, awesome. Yeah, Icons, the documentary series. That's one of the best things that G4 did.
Yeah, Icons was good.
Yeah, it was really good. Like, the access that G4 got.
It was even good before we got there.
It was.
Unusual.
It was, absolutely. It was. The access that show got to the luminaries in the industry really was unparalleled.
Well, it was the only thing doing anything like that. I mean, some of those guys had never been interviewed before about that subject.
Yep.
About that, like, their history of things.
Now it's YouTube.
Like, was that the first documentary ever done about Roberta Williams?
Oh, I'm sure.
Must have been something like that.
100% sure. Absolutely. Icons was way ahead of his time. A great show. Justin Horman, thank you for subscribing at Tier 2. That's awesome, man. Thank you. Whoop, whoop, indeed. Kevin Roffa, how did you come up with the name GameFace? I don't even know if I remember how I came up with the name GameFace.
Well, I figured it was sort of a sports reference because it's, put on your game face.
Well, that was part of it. I think the bigger part of it was like exposing different facets of gaming was the idea, the different faces of gaming. And then the literal sense, our first opening graphics were literally faces of people who were in gaming. But that's really where it came from, was just the idea of exposing these different faces of games in video games. We got time for maybe one more. Vincent. With housekeeping going so long these days, what's the dividing line on how big a topic needs to be in order to become a real topic? Good question. Well, honestly, I mean, they do go on, but we never spend more than, like, I don't know, 10 minutes on one of the housekeeping topics usually. Mm-hmm. And the B-roll that I create for each main topic is at least 18 minutes long. So, and we go through the whole B-roll pretty much every time when we talk about a main topic in the show. So I guess 18 minutes is the cutoff. If I think a topic can last for 18 to 20 minutes, then I'll move it into the bulk of the show. Now keep in mind, housekeeping, as the year wears on, will start shrinking and shrinking and shrinking until, like, it has, like, the top 2 or 3 stories from the week in it, and then the rest of the show is just games. But that's when all the games are coming out in Q4, and we have, like, 2 or 3 huge games for every episode of GameFace. Okay, we'll answer one more. Erebus Jones, since you were so close to winning Name That Game, we'll answer your question. Sony is reportedly investing $2 billion into live service games. Is this a genius move? I have a feeling Erebus Jones is being a little facetious there.
A tad.
Yeah, because Erebus, I think most people know that you're an Xbox player. At least based upon your behavior on SIFTD anyway. You generally discuss topics around Xbox a lot. So I think he's being a little sarcastic or facetious here. No, I don't think it's a genius move, but I think it's the right move if that's your catalog going forward. Yeah. Like, that's their games. Like, they have to spend money to market their games. And so
you're kind of already there, so you got to go all in.
It's like, once you made the decision that this was your focus for the next few years, then you got to dedicate the marketing money to back up the bet.
Yeah, you either throw $2 billion in or you completely pivot and end up in an Xbox situation where you don't have anything to release for a year or two.
Yep.
And I imagine it's probably, in the end, better to release mediocre received live service games than nothing.
Yeah. And so I think I don't know if it's genius or smart, but they had to do it. So
all I can say is Ghost of Tsushima 2 better be in there somewhere. Yeah. And not as a live service game, just something for me to play while I wait for that storm to blow over.
One final one. Norx Nessie asks, I noticed not all the Invisible Walls episodes are available. Do you know where they are? I do not. So IGN bought that whole catalog, and they were just sent all our archives on gigantic terabyte drives, and it was up to them to sort through all this stuff and put it up. And Ryan Stevens was the one who handled a lot of getting that stuff onto drives. He might be the better guy to ask on Twitter or something, but I don't know. Like, if they're missing episodes, then that's pretty much just because IGN just missed them on the drives, or they weren't on the drive. But more likely, IGN just missed them when they went to post everything on YouTube, and unfortunately, there's nothing I can do for you to help. I wish I could.
I mean, at least some of them are there. It's better you can say about X-Play.
That's true. Yeah, because there's tons of missing episodes of X-Play.
We made 1,300 something episodes of X-Play, and maybe there's like 200 online.
Yeah.
Like, I'm absolutely sure about half X-Play is gone forever.
That sucks.
Or on master tapes that were reused, or
we need to go break into the e-offices.
They're in a vault. No, the e-offices are long gone. They're all up in deep storage up in Burbank somewhere. I don't know. I don't even know who I'd talk to get access to those.
It sucks.
I did make DVD rips of 200 or so of the episodes with stuff I really liked that I did, or things that I thought were good. The most important stuff. And I ripped all those onto my hard drive. So I have digital backups of in SD quality, because that's what they were. So I have backups of like what I think are the key, maybe 1/5 of the show. But there's tons of stuff. Look, there's a guy Spooey, who's one of the biggest like archiver.
I remember him, yeah.
Guys, the fans, and he has a channel that he puts stuff up. He got tons of stuff up there. But there are episodes that I don't think even he has.
Lost. Yep. All right, there you go. That's GameFace 350. Before we go, don't forget, head to creamls.com/sifted and check out LS Cream. If you haven't bought a bottle yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. It is literally like turned into one of my go-to mixers for every drink that I make. Again, make sure you use that URL, creamls.com/sifted, SIFTD. If you're listening to this show on any of the podcast services out there, and it's on all of them, or if you're watching this show on YouTube, head to patreon.com/sifted and give us a pledge. Even if you just pledge $1 and you go to sifted.net, you get rewards just for $1 a month on sifted.net. You can use our premium forums. You get a nameplate. Of course, if you pledge $4 or more per month, you get all our content immediately. If you pledge just $2 a month, you get all Pactor Factor immediately without having to jump through the hoops of subscribing with Twitch Prime, which, by the way, you should do that as well if you can. But really, Patreon is the way if you really want to support us and make sure that we stick around. That's the way to do it, because we can count on that money more than the Twitch Prime stuff. I can tell you, we can definitely count on a lot more than the Twitch Prime stuff right now, because those numbers are real low. So anyway, try to support us if you can. If you can't afford anything, you can help us in other ways. You can share the show on your Twitter feed. You can share the show on your Facebook account. You can go and review the show on podcast services. That's a very easy thing to do that will help us a ton. Reviews on podcast services are very important. That's how the stuff gets bubbled up. There are like 500 video game podcasts on pretty much every podcast service. Without reviews for our show, we just get lost in the mosh. So if you really like what we're doing, write us a review and just be honest about it and say, I love this show. If you love games, you'll love GameFace. There's tons of stuff you can do no matter how much money you have or you don't have to help us, and I hope that you will do that. So we'll be back next Tuesday right here at twitch.tv/siftedgames at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. I can't really think about what we're going to be talking about next week yet.
Better hope some news happens.
We'll figure it out. We always do. No matter what.
I'll do an hour-long explication of why the Flash failed. How about that?
Well, we always make the show fun, and so do you guys in chat. Thanks to everybody in chat we had a great day today for the hype train, and we had tons of people subscribing with Twitch Prime. You guys are awesome. Vincent reminds us Pikmin. Yeah, Pikmin 4 will be in next week's show, which we just talked about last week. But anyway, we'll see you guys next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.